Chapter 331. When Zhu Yao opened her eyes, what she saw was a familiar roof. It looked especially like the straw huts her master had mass-produced using mystic arts. It was so simple that only the roof was left. Underneath him was a hard bedboard, but there were a lot of blankets, more than 10. She seriously suspected that she had been woken up by the heat. She pushed several times but to no avail, so she had to turn over and climb out. The door was knocked open with a bang. With a flash of white light, a white figure stood in front of the bed. In an instant, the grievances in Zhu Yao's heart overflowed. Her nose turned sour, and she reached out her hands. "Master." She begged for hugs and consolation. Yu Yan frowned and inspected her from head to toe. Seeing that she did not have any other problems, he then let out a long sigh. Taking a step forward, he hugged his stupid disciple. "Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Zhu Yao turned and buried her head into his embrace. It would have been fine if he did not ask, but the moment he did, she was a little unable to restrain her emotions, and she especially wanted to show off a little. "I'm not feeling well anywhere." Hearing this, Yu Yan was startled for a moment. Habitually, he reached out to her wrist and seriously checked her pulse. Only after carefully checking it a few times did he feel at ease. If his master was here, then this place should be the immortal world. Realm Spirit was finally reliable for once. "You were unconscious for half a year." Half a year? Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. Half a year? Wasn't that the total amount of time she took to complete the previous mission? Could it be that her dandelion avatar had successfully ascended? It's just that it's a bare machine with no software installed. He wanted to circulate his spiritual energy to see what he looked like. However, he found that his dantian was empty. How could this be? Yu Yan seemed to know what she was thinking about. With a wave of his hand, he instantly materialized a water mirror. She looked inside and her face immediately darkened. "Isn't this my original appearance?" Could it be? Even his hairstyle was modern. Could this be her original body? The one with zero combat power? Then how could she play in the celestial world? Yu Yan nodded. Without minding it in the slightest, he combed his disciple's excessively short hair, and the corner of his lips slightly rose. "You're pretty good like this." Pretty good? He lowered his head in silence. Which part of him had persevered? That's not right. For Master, it means that it's quite easy to recognize, right? You're face blind. "Master, what is going on? Why did I return to my original body?" Logically speaking, after she returned from the modern era, she should have known. Her body should be stored in Realm Spirit's place. "Your master doesn't know either." Yu Yan frowned. "That day, I waited for you at the Divine Gate for a month, but I didn't see you ascend to the immortal realms. Later on, I suddenly sensed your presence, only to realize that your body had returned to Lightning Divine Hall. You only woke up today." It was true that a bear machine came online first. No wonder Master didn't go down to the lower bound to look for her this time. He was probably afraid that she would come up again after he went down, so he waited for her to wake up. Thinking about it, she was really miserable. In any case, she had kept her chastity for so many years, and it wasn't easy for her to fall in love. And he even fucking tormented it into a foreign land. His tears of sorrow were about to flow all over the 3 realms. "Just what happened to you?" Yu Yan hugged her tightly. Zhu Yao had no choice but to tell her master about Ling Tian in detail, including the matter of Fau turning into a devil. Realm Spirit said that he was originally a person of the 3 realms. Even if he becomes a fiend, he will remain in the 3 realms and won't become a bug. "I don't know what he's up to, but why do I feel that something is strange?" Yu Yan's expression sank. This was the nth time he regretted not smashing his disciple's heavenly book. The reason why his disciple was courting death was all because of that guy. "Oh right, Master, I have something important to tell you," Zhu Yao said with a stern look. "Do you feel that Realm Spirit?" She paused midway, and a hint of confusion flashed across her face. "Amen," Yu Yan asked doubtfully. "What's wrong with him?" Zhu Yao's mind suddenly went blank. She didn't know why, but she had suddenly forgotten what she was thinking about. What was I going to tell you? I forgot about it for a moment." Yu Yan stroked her head. "It's fine if you can't recall it." Oh, was it her imagination? Why did she feel that something was strange? Realm Spirit said that it was currently a holiday, so naturally, there weren't any troublesome bugs to fix. For a moment, she had nothing to do. Adding that her original avatar had come online, she had to do something meaningful no matter what. For example, Master, do you still remember the betrothal gifts you prepared all those years ago? Marry me, marry me, marry me. The hands of a certain master who was cooking paused for a moment. A hint of something flashed across his face, and he silently responded. Amen. Are you ready? Come on, marry me. With a calm look, Yu Yan carried out the dishes and placed them in front of his stupid disciple. He then passed the chopsticks over. Amen, I'm ready. 2 servings. What? 2 servings? Zhu Yao instantly leapt up and pounced towards her own master. Damn it, I haven't even gotten my marriage certificate from you yet. You want to have a second chance, and marry too? Speak, who's that mistress? I'm going to kill her. With a wave of his hand, Yu Yan moved away the dishes on the table. His figure leaned back a little, allowing his disciple to pounce on the table a little more easily. Taking the opportunity, he held onto her waist and carried her down from the stone table. She frowned. Eat properly. She couldn't even eat properly. She was currently just a mortal. Eat my ass. The man was about to run away, so how could she still have the mood to eat? Speak clearly. What's with 2 servings? He looked at her strangely. 1 betrothal gift and 1 dowry. Naturally 2 servings. So that's the case. All right, I forgive you. Like I said, it was already not easy to pick up a face-blind patient like her master, so how could there be any other women? She had to be the only one. Amen, just thinking about it made her a little excited. Once she was excited, she would want to do some bad things. Master, I heard that around 28 years old is the golden period for females. What a coincidence. My original body was 28 years old. Amen. Master, I heard that the pressure in modern society is growing, and the restrictions are growing as well. Amen. Master, I heard that the Family Planning Office has announced a new policy, and it's even stricter than before. It's going to be implemented soon. Amen. Master, I heard that the birth rate in the divine realm is 0, and it's breaking new records in the history of the 3 realms every year. I feel that everyone has a responsibility to protect the divine realm. We should change it a little. Amen. Master, I heard that after becoming a deity in a certain aspect, my abilities will be restricted. What a coincidence, I'm immortal now, so there aren't any restrictions at all. Eat properly. Master, eating is such a waste of such a beautiful scenery. Why don't I do some interesting exercise? Come, Little Red Riding Hood, let Grandma have a bite. Master, I heard that you like monkeys. Zhu Yao felt that. Since they were about to get married, then their married life should be brought forward as well. For example, giving birth to a monkey during the holidays? Because of this, she decided to use her charm to conquer his agreement. Even if he didn't agree, she had to create conditions to make him agree. However, she never expected that a certain master did not have the slightest bit of objection towards his disciple's suggestion. Instead, he explained something to her in an extremely serious manner. Yao, you're currently in your original body. Ah. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. I know. Since you're in your original body, then you're a human. Only a monkey spirit can give birth to a monkey. She was actually speechless. Yu Yan looked at his disciple's earnest eyes. If you really like it, why don't? If you really like it, why don't your master catch one for you? The hell? Who asked you to catch one? This old lady only wants to give birth to children for you. As expected, when talking to her own master, she couldn't even make half a turn. She immediately pounced on him. Pressing on his righteous lips, her hands turned, and she immediately pulled open the belt on his body. Since she couldn't communicate with him with words, then she would express it with actions. Strangely this time, he was unexpectedly cooperative. However, when she pounced on him, he was stunned for a few seconds. After that, he actually did not resist in the slightest. Furthermore, with a learning spirit, he searched for the belt on her body and pulled it open at roughly the same frequency as her. His other hand hugged her even tighter as well. Perhaps it was because men had a natural talent in this area. Even if a certain master lacked experience, he was a genius after all. In just a moment, he had already taken control of the situation. With a slight tilt of his body, he pressed Zhu Yao beneath him. She simply felt her vision blurring, and a white light flashed past. Late at night, Zhu Yao sat at the head of the bed, feeling like crying. Yu Yan pulled the blanket over the person on the bed. Looking at his disciple at the head of the bed, he remained silent. The person lying on the bed was her. To be precise, it was her body. And the one at the head of the bed was her soul. Recalling what happened earlier, Zhu Yao was still a little unable to react. Just earlier, the atmosphere was just right. Under the moonlight, the scenery was beautiful, and it was a feast for the eyes. Recalling that the two of them could be considered as an old married couple, she could not help but bite him. The scene immediately changed from first base to second base, and then to second base. In the end, she bit her teeth. At the last moment, her body actually felt light, and her soul directly left her body. Left her body. Left her body. Left her body. When she regained her senses, she was already floating in the air. Was this a curse from the FFF guild? The hell, someone else is single, and you're blaming me? Master. She really wanted to cry. Yu Yan sighed. Glancing at his translucent disciple, recalling the scene earlier, a hint of redness flashed past his face. Lightly coughing, he said, "Your master does not know why your soul suddenly left your body either." His eyes wandered around for a moment before he continued. "Don't move around recklessly. I will invite the hall master over to take a look." After saying that, his figure flashed out of the door, and no matter how she looked at it, it felt as though he was fleeing. In less than a quarter of an hour, he returned with a man in cotton robes. "Yo, little grand disciple, long time no see. Congratulations on your recent." Eugene raised his hand and greeted the person lying on the bed. Before he could even finish, he saw the other Zhu Yao at the head of the bed. His figure paused for a moment, and his pair of peach blossom eyes narrowed. Her soul left her body. Hall master. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Is this how you congratulate someone? What happened? And here she thought that the two of them had invited him to their wedding feast. Her soul suddenly left her body. I used the soul-suppressing art, but I couldn't make her return, Yu Yan explained. Eugene frowned. Stepping forward, he checked the meridians of the body lying on the bed, and then reached out 2 fingers to tap on the soul-like Zhu Yao's forehead. Eugene's frivolous smile retracted, and a hint of graveness appeared on his face. He turned to look at Zhu Yao. The life force is endless, and the soul does not disperse. Both sides are fine, so it shouldn't be like this. What did you do earlier? The master and disciple both stiffened. They exchanged glances, and then silently turned their heads away. What she could say was that she had done something that shouldn't have been done. Attempted. And then she was disrupted. Eat. Yu Yan immediately interrupted his disciple's words, and replied with a stern expression. If one were to ignore his ears that were so red they were dripping with blood. Wang Eugene, who was single, naturally did not notice the two's little actions. Based on the great moral integrity of a good hall master, he carefully asked about the recipe, and even personally examined it. From beginning to end, he was still unable to find out the true reason why Zhu Yao's soul had left her body. This matter is rather strange. Eugene frowned. Most probably, her soul had left her body for too long, and now that she has just woken up, she's not used to it yet. Let's just wait and see. The general meaning was, I can't do anything about it either, you guys can do as you see fit. Perhaps let's wait a little longer, and see if she will return on her own. What happened to the promised good hall master? Crash. Oh right. He suddenly recalled something. I remember that there's a soul guiding pearl in the hall's precious treasure pavilion. Before he could even finish, a white figure flashed, and Yu Yan had already disappeared. The corner of Eugene's lips twitched. He hadn't even said he was going to borrow it. Hey, where's the most basic respect towards a hall master? He turned to look at Zhu Yao, and said with a heavy tone, I say Cui Hua, don't learn from your master. Cui Hua your sister. Huh. Damn it, it's too late. I've already been led astray. His face was filled with pain. Suddenly he thought of something, and his eyes flashed. Alright, Chui. Little grand disciple. Are the two of you really planning on getting married? That's right. You have an opinion. Ho ho. He instantly smiled like a chrysanthemum. Since the two of you are husband and wife, naturally, you're no longer his disciple. When that time comes, your personal succeeding imprint will be gone. Are you interested in becoming a hall master? He still hasn't given up yet. Not interested. Don't decide so quickly. He continued to persuade. Look at you, you're currently just a mortal. If you want to cultivate to the high deity realm, you'll need a long time. This path of cultivation is extremely dry and dull. Are you sure you don't want to become a hall master for fun? No need. Zhu Yao strongly shook her head and said seriously. I have my master. How could she be bored? The single dog suffered 10,000 points of damage. The corner of Yu Jin's lips twitched, and the resentment value on his body surged at an extreme speed, breaking through the barrier in a straight line. Little grand disciple. Amen. Flaunting your love, you'll split it up quickly. Heh, at least it's better than flaunting your right hand. Fine, you win. Let's talk about your out-of-body experience. Eugene gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. He took a step forward, planning to help her check on the situation of her soul once again. Just as he reached out his hand, suddenly, Zhu Yao's soul rippled like water. Her figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, she disappeared from where she stood. As though she had never existed in the first place, not a single trace of her aura could be detected. Eugene. Chapter 332. It was a dark room, and dust would fall from the ceiling from time to time. There were also huge chains that crisscrossed the entire room. The ground was littered with broken immortal artifacts, which were still faintly emitting immortal chi. This should be a weapons room. And from the looks of it, it seemed like no one had been here for a long time. Zhu Yao blinked for exactly 10 seconds. Why was she here? Trying it out, he felt that his body was unusually heavy. Did he change his avatar again? Fuck, what happened to the promised vacation? Before she could figure out the situation, there was a sudden rumble. The stone door in front of her slowly rose, and the entire room began to shake. With a few cracking sounds, cracks began to appear. The room was suddenly filled with dust and smoke. The dazzling sunlight shone in, and she felt dizzy for a moment. A man came running towards him. His face was in a sorry state, and his body was covered in dirty black ash. His right hand was injured, and blood was dripping from it. He looked around frantically, as if he was looking for something. Suddenly his eyes were fixed on her. Yo. Good morning. Zhu Yao greeted him. The man was stunned, and a strange light shone in his eyes as he exclaimed, Bitch! Holy shit, why are you scolding me? The man charged at him. What do you want? Zhu Yao's heart trembled. That man, however, did not even bother with her. With a turn of his feet, he actually stood behind her. Just as she was about to flare up, he curled up into a ball and squatted down. What was going on? Where is he? A few angry voices came from outside, accompanied by a few curses. I clearly saw it coming this way. Where did it go? It must be nearby. Look carefully. So it was a refuge. But why are you hiding behind me? Was it really okay to deceive oneself like this? I'm not blind. I saw it with one glance, okay? Also, who are you? Sure enough, 3 immortal cultivators appeared in front of the door. There were 2 men and 1 woman, and they had ferocious looks on their faces. All of them were golden immortals. Fine. She immediately surrendered. Hi. If I said I was just passing by, would you guys believe me? It's none of my business. I don't know anything. The 3 of them walked in fiercely, their gazes fixed on her. And then it moved away. How could there be no one? Logically speaking, there's only this shabby stone house nearby. You can see everything in one glance. It's not here. Let's go back and look for it. So the 3 of them turned around and left. Holy shit, there's really such a blind person. The 3 of them left. The man behind her let out a long sigh of relief. His whole body slumped onto the ground like a pile of mud. He turned around and glanced at her. His face was covered in mud. He smiled. Thank you. No. Please thank those 3 people for being blind. The man looked her up and down, and the light in his eyes became brighter and brighter. I knew it, you're really cheap. Fuck. Who are you scolding? Zhu Yao was instantly enraged. You're the cheap one, your entire family is cheap. The man laughed. Suddenly he reached out to her. What are you planning to do? Zhu Yao's heart sank, as she habitually tried to dodge. However, he found that he could not move his body. Immobilized? She actually did not have the slightest bit of strength to resist. She could only watch helplessly as he lifted her up, and then with both of his hands, he swept his gaze across her. His fingers flicked towards her, and a clear ding could be heard. It's actually a 2nd rank. I knew it. As expected, this is a peerless divine sword. What did you say? Zhu Yao was dumbfounded for a moment. She looked towards his eyes, only to see the reflection of a 2nd-rank divine sword that was pitch black and filled with rust. The hilt of the sword was even engraved with a silly X character. The hell? Hello everyone, her name is Zhu Yao. A few hours ago, she was still enjoying her perfect holiday, drinking divine brew, eating from the private kitchen, and hugging a little bro. Just as she was about to develop into something more embarrassing than friendship, she even took off her pants. In the end, she died. And then, she turned into a silly 2nd-rank divine sword, and was even picked up by a male earth deity who was even dumber than her. The idiot most likely had not seen much of the world. Grabbing onto her as though she was a treasure, he quickly flew out of that dark room. Fortunately, he had his own flying sword. Otherwise, even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't want to fly under his feet. He flew very quickly, and in just a few moments he left that forest and even passed through 2 small divine cities. Only when the sun had set did the idiot finally stop by a small river. He began to carefully inspect Zhu Yao, and the more he looked, the brighter the joy on his face grew. He repeatedly looked at the sword, and even his breathing was a little hurried, as he impatiently cast a dirt removal art. Zhu Yao simply felt her entire body becoming light. Those embroidery marks that were attached to her sword began to peel off inch by inch, revealing the originally pure white and beautiful sword body, and the numerous ancient imprints on the sword body. XXXXX, Zhu Yao really wanted to reply with, fuck fuck fuck. This sword definitely has the ability to conceal one's presence. The man's eyes sparkled. This is great, I finally have my own weapon in the future. Hey, who wants to be your weapon? The man inspected the sword body a little excitedly. His eyes were filled with a joyful light. Tisich. It seemed like he couldn't hear her voice at all. The more he looked, the more excited he became. Unconsciously, he pulled up the corner of his clothes and forcefully wiped it a few times, and then smeared her entire face with mud. The hell, if he knew the dirt removal art, why didn't he use it on himself first? As expected, this person was an idiot, right? The man was startled for a moment, as though he realized that he had dirted his sword instead. He immediately cast a dirt removal art, but he still used it on the sword body first. After seeing that the mud on it had completely disappeared, he then pointed at himself. With this, today, I will definitely be able to. Definitely be able to what? A dark voice sounded from behind. The man's body trembled, and even the mystic art in his hands had dispersed. His entire body stiffened on the spot. The blood on his face instantly disappeared, and the hand that was holding onto the sword suddenly tightened. I never expected that you would actually return alive. That voice continued. Not bad. Even though it was clearly a confirmation, there wasn't the slightest bit of praise in those words. The man's hand that was holding onto the sword tightened even more, and it began to tremble slightly. He tightly gritted his teeth. A moment later, he took a deep breath and turned around. He respectfully bowed towards the person who had arrived. Master. Amen. That person indifferently responded. Only then did Zhu Yao see his appearance clearly. It was an elderly man dressed in a navy blue robe, and he was extremely skinny. He was extremely skinny, and his face was filled with deep wrinkles, making him look extremely mean and sinister. What's that in your hand? The elderly man glanced at the man. His eyes were filled with contempt. The man frowned. His hands trembled. In the end, he still took a step forward and handed over the sword with both hands. Master, please forgive me. This disciple did not manage to find any divine herbs during this trip to the absolute forest of separation, but I accidentally found this divine sword. The elderly man flipped his hand, and the sword in the man's hand landed in his hands. Second-rank divine sword? He frowned. A hint of contempt flashed past his eyes. Suddenly, he sent a palm strike towards the man, instantly sending him flying a few meters away, and he had nearly fallen into the river. Useless thing. I told you to search for divine herbs, yet you brought back such a piece of trash. A mere second-rank divine sword is enough to make you dizzy, to the point where you don't even care about the mission your master has given you? The man crawled up from the ground. Evidently, he was already heavily injured, yet he still knelt down. Master, forgive me. This disciple knows his wrongs. Umph. The elderly man coldly snorted. Continue searching. After saying that, he no longer cared about the man on the ground. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the divine sword and flew away. As for the broken divine sword Zhu Yao, he had been holding it in his hands the entire time, as he did not have any intentions of returning it to the man. It seemed like these two people were not good examples of what a good teacher and student should be. Wasn't the absolute forest of separation a forest that connected the demonic immortal continent and deity continent? That place was not just any kind of danger. Zhu Yao could not understand the identities of these two people. That elderly man had already brought her to a divine realm. In front of her was a divine mountain that pierced through the clouds, and the entire place was shrouded in auspicious clouds. He immediately flew to the top of the mountain, and there were actually many solemn and dignified palaces and pavilions. He immediately flew in, and turned towards a side hall on the right. Zhu Yao could faintly see the words Feng Ta written on the mountain gate earlier. The elderly walked towards the side hall, and occasionally, there would be disciples dressed in the same navy blue robes bowing towards him. Greetings to Pavilion Master Fan. Amen. The elderly man seemed to have instantly retracted that dark and cold expression from earlier, and actually replied with a smile on his face. He walked all the way to the front of a cave residence. He stopped in front of the door for a moment, looked at the divine sword in his hands, and then turned to the backyard. Pulling open a door, he threw Zhu Yao in with a wave of his hand. Zhu Yao's body felt light, and her vision blurred. With a few thuds, she rolled a few times before she finally came to a stop after knocking into something. After taking a closer look, she realized that this was a weapon room. Various divine artifacts were piled up everywhere, ranging from 1st to 5th rank. Zhu Yao instantly felt like crying. Was this the sign of being collected here? Wouldn't it have been better to follow that idiot earlier? At the very least, she could walk around. Right now, she couldn't move at all. Master, where are you? Your disciple has fallen. Hey, you're squashing me. A grumble suddenly sounded. Zhu Yao was shocked. She looked around, yet she did not see a single shadow. Was she hearing things? Hey, I'm talking to you. Newcomer. That voice once again sounded. Who? Here. You're below. Zhu Yao lowered her head to take a look, only to see that underneath her sword, there was a hammer-shaped 4th-rank divine artifact. You can speak? Zhu Yao was completely dumbfounded. It turned into a spirit? That hammer flashed with divine light. Even you can speak, so why can't I? Hurry and get off this great lord's body. Hammer with such a bad temper. Enough, Patian. Stop bullying the newcomer. Can't you see that it's just a 2nd-rank divine artifact? It's already not easy for it to speak. A female voice sounded from the side. Zhu Yao took a look, and it was actually a wooden comb. Humph. The hammer coldly snorted, and the divine energy on its body grew even brighter. It immediately flew up, and conveniently threw Zhu Yao away. She flew onto a weapon rack, and no longer spoke. Don't be afraid, newcomer. The wooden comb said amiably. In the future, we're all neighbors. That's right. Newcomer, are you a sword? The dagger at the side asked. We have so few swords here. You're the only one. The fan divine artifact said. That's right. You're the first sword I've seen ever since I came out of the furnace. The light muslin divine artifact Sword, what's your name? Jian, I'm called Blade. What's yours? You idiot. She's a sword, so of course she's called Jian. You guys are the despicable ones. Your entire families are despicable. Hello Jian, I'm called Spear. The red spear at the door said. Hello Jian, I'm called Flute. The jade flute in the cabinet. Hello Jian, I'm called Fan. The fan on the rack. Hello Jian, I'm called. The black rock in the corner. Material. Zhu Yao. That just what the hell was with this house? Why were there so many weapons? And even the material used to refine artifacts could speak. Hey? Did she activate some sort of special ability again? Jian, ignore Patian. He has a bad temper. Seeing that she wasn't speaking, the wooden comb softly consoled. The other divine artifacts began to speak one after another as well. That's right, that's right. He's just jealous. Our names are so nice to hear, only his isn't normal at all. That's right, he's actually called Patian. It's super unpleasant to hear. It's not even as pure as my name, Rod. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. It's really pure. Right. I feel the same way. Your name Jian sounds really nice as well. Though it can't be compared to mine, it's still not bad. Thank you so much. That's enough. Patian, who was on the rack, suddenly flared up. Leaping down, he roared out loud. Patian is the name that old man gave me. My original name is Hammer. I'm Hammer. I'm a hammer. Zhu Yao. That the divine artifacts seemed to have long gotten used to Hammer's roars. As they continued to passionately chat with the newcomer, Zhu Yao. The dagger flickered and said, Jian, do you like to shine? I like to shine the most. Let's be friends. No, the dagger was startled and instantly dimmed a little. Why? Haven't you heard of this saying? Zhu Yao sternly said. Do not offend, sword. Zhu Yao stayed in the divine artifact room for an entire day. Other than the various divine artifacts, she did not see even a shadow of a single person. She suddenly felt a little anxious. As she wondered how her master was doing, she tried to absorb divine energy and imagined herself turning into a divine jade like how she did in the past, cultivating into a spirit. In the end, she realized that she was unable to cultivate. Forget about guiding divine energy into her body. She could not even sense divine energy. She then tried to bask in the moonlight, but realized that there was still no effect. She instantly felt discouraged. What was she supposed to do now? Could it be that she had to stay here forever and wait for someone to take her away? Or wait for her master to discover her? Looking at that deity surnamed Fan, he evidently looked down on her second-rank divine artifact, and was a stingy miser as well. He even wanted to snatch his disciple's weapon. It was basically impossible for her to give it away. What should she do? Suddenly, an extremely soft creaking sound came from the side of the door. A black figure flashed in, and with a flustered expression he looked around. His line of sight was fixed on Patian, and in an instant his eyes widened. Chapter 333. The idiot, however, did not stay for long. With a clear goal in mind, he walked over, took Zhu Yao, and left. Along the way, he carefully avoided the various disciples. Perhaps it was because his luck was too good, but he actually managed to leave Mt. Fengta smoothly. Only when he was out of the gate of immortality did he dare to fly his sword and escape quickly. After flying for an hour, he arrived at a wilderness. Only then did the man stop panting. Looking at the sword in his hand, a gratified smile appeared on his face, making him look even more foolish. Zhu Yao was a little confused about this person's thoughts. If one were to say that he couldn't bear to part with the divine artifact, so he wanted to steal it back under the cover of the night. However, there were so many immortal weapons in the weapon room just now, and there were even a bunch of weapons that were of a higher grade than her. Yet he just took her and left. This was too abnormal. The man carefully looked at the immortal sword in his hand, then turned back to look in the direction he came from. He frowned and said softly to himself, "With this I can definitely." He stopped mid-sentence and took a deep breath, as if he had made up his mind about something. Before Zhu Yao could understand the situation, he had already chanted an incantation and cast a mystic art. He had even used divine energy to cut open his own finger, condensing a drop of blood and dripping it onto Zhu Yao's finger. This was the magic seal for an immortal artifact to recognize its master. Furthermore, it was a fucking magic seal that used blood as a guide. When the drop of blood landed on her body, she immediately felt as if someone had stuffed her mouth full of something. There was also the smell of blood, and it was especially disgusting. He spat it out without thinking. The seal on the man's hand also disappeared. The man was shocked. Looking at the drop of blood that had been reflected, a look of confusion appeared on his face. Before, it was clearly able to conceal my aura, so it should be an ownerless item. Why was the seal rejected? He studied and studied. However, he did not see anything strange. His brows furrowed tightly, and something flashed in his eyes. He could only give up for now. He took out a storage pouch and opened it. Fuck, this guy can't be thinking of putting it into his storage bag, right? Sure enough, in the next moment, the man directly stuffed it into the black bag. Yamit! Give me back my fresh air. Her vision went black. In an instant, he lost all his senses, and his consciousness drifted away. Suddenly, he had a terrible headache. Subconsciously, he raised his hand and knocked twice. The pain disappeared. How strange. She was a sword, so why did she have a headache? Wait a minute. She had just lifted her hand. Zhu Yao fiercely opened her eyes, however. What entered her eyes was not darkness, but a familiar thatched cottage. She is lying on the bed. The quilt was neatly covered, and there was a round bead beside the pillow. It was emitting a gentle silver light, making people feel very comfortable. She's back. Zhu Yao hurriedly sat up and looked around. As expected, it was her master's straw cottage. Where was master? Suddenly, the sound of thunder resounded through the sky. She jumped in fright. Where did the thunder come from? Logically speaking, though there was a lightning formation in the surroundings of the lightning divine hall, there was an isolation formation inside. So sound shouldn't be able to enter. He quickly climbed off the bed. She opened the door and saw that the sky was filled with tribulation lightning. Red and white flashed everywhere. Other than the area around the thatched cottage, there was thunder and lightning everywhere. Flowers and trees were destroyed, and the air was filled with the smell of burnt flesh. In the sky, two figures, one white and one red, were so fast that they couldn't be seen clearly. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Why were the two of them fighting again? In the past, it was fine if they fought outside the hall to harass the natives below, but why were they fighting in their own home? Master! She could not help but call out. The tribulation lightning in the sky suddenly stopped, and all of the lightning sparks were instantly extinguished. In the next moment, Eugene, dressed in a red robe, appeared in front of her. Yo, little grand disciple, you're finally awake. If he still hadn't woken up, he would have been wronged to death. Come, let great-great-grandmaster have a look. Just as he was about to step forward, a white figure descended from the sky and kicked him. His figure quickly hugged onto Zhu Yao, and he retreated a few meters. Yu Yan held onto Zhu Yao with one hand, while his other hand held onto a sword that was overflowing with lightning sparks. His body looked as though it was covered in thousand-year-old ice, and the air within a radius of several kilometers was frozen. Little Yin Yan, you're deceiving your master. After all, I'm still your master's master. Eugene dodged his kick by a hair's breadth, and still had a sloppy expression. Though our cultivation levels are the same, you shouldn't have used your life artifact to deal with me. Yu Yan immediately ignored his complaints, and lowered his head to inspect his disciple in his embrace. Do you feel any discomfort? No. I'm fine. Zhu Yao shook her head, and sized the two of them up. What was wrong with these two? Ha, I've already said that I'm wronged. The disappearance of little grand disciple's soul really has nothing to do with me. You still don't believe me? Eugene shook his head, and looked at his surroundings with a pained expression. In an instant he put on the airs of a floor master, and said with a complaining look. Look, Lightning Divine Hall's millions of years of foundation. How have they been destroyed by you? He spoke as though he did not make a move himself. Floor master. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Before you speak, please retract that joyful expression of yours, all right? You can't bully my master for not liking to speak either, right? Yu Jin's expression stiffened. Was there anyone who would tear down a senior's stage like this? Little grand disciple, let's have a chat. Sure, but before we chat, please change the lower half of your body, alright? She had wanted to say this a long time ago. What was with him wearing a robe that had its lower half burnt? Did he want to see his leg hair fluttering in the wind? Only then did Yu Yan realize that the lower half of his robe had been burnt off, revealing 2 snow-white hairy thighs. He silently turned his disciple's head. His disciple was his, and he was determined not to let other masters look at her leg hair. Yu Jin's heart was instantly stuffed. A buff called Floor Master's Dignity was instantly dispersed, and he received a rebound damage plus 1000. Yu Yan, however, had already kept his weapon. Pulling his own disciple's hand, he inspected it repeatedly, and as he looked he asked, "What happened? Where did it go?" Zhu Yao had no choice but to explain the matter of her turning into a sword in detail. The more she spoke, the deeper his brows furrowed. Even Floor Master Eugene, who was still acting frivolously earlier, had a heavy expression as well. This situation. Eugene pondered for a moment, and solemnly said, "It does seem like her soul is unstable." Yu Yan's expression was heavy. Carrying his disciple, he walked towards the straw cottage behind him. Let's return to the house first. He carefully inspected Zhu Yao's body from inside out. However, he still could not find any abnormalities. Yu Yan's brows furrowed even deeper. It might be because she doesn't have any cultivation. Eugene guessed. She doesn't have the slightest bit of cultivation. If her soul is unstable, without the suppression of mystic energy, it's very easy for her soul to leave her body. However, he looked at Zhu Yao and solemnly said, "There are many cases of souls leaving their body and possessing others. Like little grand disciple said, possessing a sword, I have never heard of it." Then what should we do? She couldn't be switching back and forth frequently, right? Stabilize your soul. Yu Yan picked up the soul-guiding pearl at the bedside and placed it in her hands. He placed it in her hand. Remember to never leave this thing. Zhu Yao received it and nodded. She did not want to turn into that idiot's sword again. Just the soul-guiding pearl alone is probably not enough. Eugene waved at her with a friendly look. Little grand disciple, come over here. Why? What's with that expression? Could it be that the hall master will harm you? I will. Her heart felt stifled. Eugene turned his hand. He took out a pile of items from his storage ring. I have a lot of soul-suppressing divine artifacts. Come. Hurry and choose one. What condition? Ayaya. How can I be such a person? As long as you. I won't accept the position of hall master. Zhu Yao immediately interrupted. My master won't accept it either. Eugene was struck twice. As expected, this pair of master and disciple were too hateful. All right. I'll give it to you for free this time. It's fine if there aren't any conditions, right? Hurry and choose one. He felt that he was at a disadvantage. Only then did Zhu Yao put down the soul-guiding pearl in her hands and walked over doubtfully. Little grand disciple, look at how well I treat you. Eugene did not forget to continue brainwashing her. Where else can you find such a good deity like me? How can I possibly harm? Before he could even finish, just as Zhu Yao was about to reach out for the mystic artifact on the table, her vision suddenly darkened. A familiar headache assaulted her, and she fell straight down. Eugene, who caught her in the middle, that he silently raised his head and looked at a certain person who was already beginning to emit lightning bolts. If I say this has nothing to do with me, would you believe me? In an instant, the heaven-shaking tribulation lightning once again resounded. Oh, the other part of his lower body. In just a blink of an eye, a white light flashed, and the scenery around her instantly changed. Her body once again could not move. The hell? Why did she turn into a sword again? Zhu Yao looked at the idiot man who was right in front of her, and even had the urge to curse out. Currently, he was holding on to her tightly with one hand, holding it horizontally in front of him, as though he was preparing to attack. What's going on? Zhu Yao turned to look at the man. That's right. As a sword that looked the same from the front to the back, The only good thing about it was that she could switch her vision from 360 degrees without any blind spots. After looking at the front, she could look at the back, and after looking at the back, she could look at the front. Standing in front of her were two men and a woman. After taking a closer look, they were even familiar faces. They were the three people who were chasing after the idiot in the forest back then. And I was wondering what it was. The woman among the three coldly laughed. A hint of ridicule flashed past her eyes. So it's just a second-rank divine artifact. Only someone like you, who can barely be considered an earth deity, would treat it as a treasure, right? The idiot did not reply, and simply gripped the sword in his hand even tighter. Junior Marshall's sister, don't waste your breath with him. The man on the left glanced at the female deity, took a step forward, and said with a furious look, Miaobo, if you know what's good for you, hand over the devouring grass you stole from us back then. We can consider sparing your life. The idiot Miaobo looked at the three people, and his expression sank. I have long used up the devouring grass. Where am I going to return it to you? You. The female deity was instantly enraged, gritting her teeth. You're courting death. As she said that, she materialized a rain of swords, and attacked Miaobo. The other two male deities respectively used fire and ice mystic arts as well. In the beginning, Miaobo dodged with all his might, and released a barrier to defend himself. However, how could he possibly be a match for the three of them? In an instant, he was injured by them, and his body was filled with scars. The female deity took the opportunity to summon her divine sword, and slashed down. Miaobo was basically unable to react in time. Zhu Yao simply saw a pillar of blood spurt out in front of her. One of Miaobo's arms was separated from his body, and half of his body was dyed red. This was basically an instant kill. Miaobo dragged his broken body, and immediately flew back several dozen meters. His face was already as pale as snow. You overestimate yourself. The female deity's expression turned cold, and she walked straight towards him. Today, I shall let you see just what kind of people you shouldn't provoke. Miaobo had a pained expression. Just as he was about to escape, two vines suddenly broke out from the ground, and instantly bound his legs. Blood instantly flowed out from his legs, and he could no longer move. Miaobo looked as though he was about to kneel down, but he forced himself to stand. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly, and gritting his teeth, he circulated the divine energy in his entire body, injecting all of it into the divine sword in his hand. He wanted to unleash his final attack with all his might. Zhu Yao simply felt a large amount of divine energy surging into her body, carrying a violent and frenzied aura. With a thought, she subconsciously wanted to expel the excess divine energy out of her body, and on reflex, she released 10 bolts of 9 revolutions tribulation lightning. Bolts of lightning instantly appeared on the entire sword, and with a few thunderous booms, 10 bolts of 9 revolutions tribulation lightning struck straight towards the golden deity and female deity in front of her. Before she could even react, a large hole instantly appeared on her chest, and she immediately collapsed onto the ground, blood flowing out endlessly. Junior Marshall's sister. The other two male deities were shocked. They immediately supported the fallen female deity, and quickly sealed a few of the meridians in her body, protecting her primordial spirit. Only then did they look towards Miaobo compared to his previous arrogance. It was currently completely replaced by shock. Lightning-type divine arts. The two male deities exchanged glances, their eyes were filled with wariness. I never expected that you would actually be related to Lightning Divine Hall. Consider yourself lucky today. After saying that, the two of them carried the unconscious female deity and quickly left on their swords, not daring to stay a single step longer. How could they afford to offend Lightning Divine Hall? The moment the three of them left, Miaobo could no longer hold on. His vision immediately darkened, and he collapsed onto the ground. Hey idiot, are you alright? Even if he wanted to faint, he shouldn't have pressed her into that pool of blood. It's really disgusting, alright? Others would misunderstand that she had just had the most ferocious great-aunt in history. Zhu Yao called out twice, yet he did not react. Only then did she recall that no one else could hear her words. What the hell? Though Zhu Yao wasn't worried about the idiot's injuries, It wasn't because the two of them weren't familiar with each other, but because no matter what, he was still an earth deity. With the quality of his divine body, he wouldn't die just because he lost an arm. The reason why he collapsed right now was because he had poured all of his divine energy into her body earlier, and fainted from exhaustion. In just a few hours, he would definitely be alive and kicking again. Recalling the situation earlier, Zhu Yao was a little confused as well. Logically speaking, she was just a divine artifact. Strictly speaking, it was just a tool. Even if the idiot poured all of his divine energy into her body, under normal circumstances, he should be the one guiding the divine energy to launch an attack. No matter what, a weapon still needed to be wielded and slashed. However, the 9 revolutions tribulation lightning earlier was evidently released by her. The idiot did not participate in the entire process. This was equivalent to the weapon charging forward to slash at her before she even moved. Chapter 334. Idiot Miao Bo fainted for exactly an hour, while Zhu Yao was bathed in blood for an hour as well. Only when the fresh red blood had congealed into a lump did he slowly wake up. Struggling to get up, he gritted his teeth and sealed several meridians in his body before sitting cross-legged in meditation. Fuck, pick me up. Why was her face covered in blood? Miao Bo meditated for a long time before he opened his eyes and recovered some of his immortal force. After looking around, he got up and walked forward. Seriously? Was he going to throw her away, because she was dirty? Miao Bo took 2 steps. As though he had thought of something, he turned around and picked up Zhu Yao. Phew, at least you have a conscience. He quickly walked a few steps, and his legs were still slightly trembling. He stopped at the place where his severed arm was. Placing Zhu Yao at the side, he once again sat down. This time, he didn't meditate for too long. After recovering a bit of immortal energy, he formed a hand seal and reattached his broken arm. This was the first time Zhu Yao had seen an arm regeneration mystic art. Although she knew this mystic art as well, she had never used it before. She did not have the hobby of tearing off arms and playing with them. Miao Bo pressed the broken arm in his hand, and the joint began to heal automatically. In a short while, the 2 parts were connected, and not even a scar was left in the middle. Zhu Yao could not help but give a thumbs up to the medical technology of the divine realm. It was more high-end than any kind of surgery, and it was the technology of the entire population. Miao Bo tried to move the hand that had just been reattached. It was completely original and flawless. Turning his head, he then looked towards Zhu Yao, who was on the ground. Casting a dirt removal art, he got rid of the bloodstains on her body. Sizing up the sword for a moment, a smile rose. It's all thanks to you. Yes, she thought so too. We have to hurry. His expression darkened. Taking a deep breath, regardless of his injured body, he forced himself to stand up and summoned his flying sword. Were they going on a long journey? Zhu Yao glanced at the storage pouch next to him. She recalled that she had returned to Lightning Divine Hall, because she was placed inside earlier. Perhaps she could return after being placed inside. She was instantly excited. Put it in quickly. Put it in quickly. But he didn't. This time, it was unknown what Miao Bo was thinking. He immediately carried Zhu Yao and left on his flying sword. He did not have any plans to keep her. Holy shit. Although his injuries had healed, he was still injured. However, his celestial power had not completely recovered. This time he flew extremely slowly, but he had no intention of stopping. It was as if he was rushing to an extremely important place. Zhu Yao was bored, so she looked around. However, he found that there was a familiar forest below. Wasn't this the forest of separation from before? Why did he come back? Miao Bo flew all the way into the depths of the forest. For hours later, only then did he stop above a cave. He stuck an invisibility talisman on his body and descended. Only then did Zhu Yao clearly see that this was a gigantic cave entrance, and it was several tens of meters tall. It was extremely wide, but it was pitch black inside, and there were faint traces of a formation. At the entrance of the cave, there was a row of sharp stone pillars hanging upside down. It's a hole. It would be better to call it a giant mouth. Who is it? Suddenly, a loud roar rang out, and the hole slowly closed up. Above the hole, 2 eyes as big as the mouth of a well appeared. Holy shit, he really opened his mouth. The 2 eyes on the hole emitted 2 beams of red light. Like an X-ray, they swept towards the front of the hole. Zhu Yao felt Miaobo's hand, which was grabbing onto her, instantly tightening for a moment. She even faintly broke out in cold sweat, as she stood on the spot without moving. That red light instantly swept past their bodies, and then retracted, as though it did not discover any abnormalities. Immediately after, the pair of eyes closed, and the mouth began to widen, returning to its previous appearance of the cave. This scanning technique was clearly not good. It was clearly inferior to infrared. Miaobo's aura lightened, and only then did he carefully move towards the inside of the cave, his hand tightly grabbing onto Zhu Yao. He walked very lightly, and did not use a single divine art at all. Slowly he moved into the hole. The inside was not as dark as Zhu Yao imagined. Instead, it was filled with the light of formations, some red and some white. Various types of formations filled the entire cave. Zhu Yao looked carefully for a moment, and realized that there were quite a few offensive formations, and they were of various types. Miaobo looked at his surroundings with extreme caution, and did not touch any of the formations. He looked around as though he had a goal in mind. Suddenly, his face lit up, and he walked towards an inconspicuous little formation at the bottom right corner. This seemed to be a teleportation formation, yet it contained some sort of special spatial mystic art within. Miaobo immediately walked into that formation. However, he did not easily activate it. Instead, he observed his surroundings for a moment, before taking a deep breath. Suddenly, he circulated the remaining divine energy in his body, and instantly activated that formation. In an instant, the red light shone brightly. Everything in the cave suddenly changed as well. The hard rocks earlier turned into the color of flesh, and the entire cave lit up. The surrounding stone walls turned into walls of flesh, and they were even faintly dripping with mucus. The ground, however, turned into a gigantic piece of soft flesh, and it began to move. This place was actually the mouth of a beast. Idiot! Are they here to feed me? Who is it? A furious roar resounded in all directions. Miaobo immediately transferred in the last strand of divine energy, and the formation was activated in time as well. The scenery in front of their eyes changed, and they arrived at a brightly lit room. Miaobo's legs weakened, and he immediately sat on the ground. His head was drenched in cold sweat, and his face was pale, filled with lingering fear. He panted for a long while, before regaining his senses. Looking around, he suddenly began to laugh again. The more he laughed, the louder he laughed, and his face was slowly replaced with excitement and ecstasy. Finally, I'm finally in. His forelimbs spread out, and he laid on the golden floor. After a long while, he finally suppressed his arrogant expression, stood up, and walked forward. Only then did Zhu Yao slowly regain her senses. She finally understood why this person was so insistent on holding on to it. He must have known from the start that there was something he wanted here, but the entrance just so happened to be in the mouth of that stone-like monster. Coincidentally, she seemed to have some sort of aura concealment ability, which was why he thought of using her aura concealment to sneak in. So this idiot wasn't stupid at all. Look at how well he planned it. Miaobo rested for a moment, before standing up and beginning to explore this place. He seemed to know that there wasn't any danger here, as he completely did not put up any defenses, and directly walked forward. This place was extremely huge. Though the surroundings were gorgeous, it was very spacious. He immediately turned to the right. Walking to the innermost area, he pushed open a gorgeous and simple door. The furnishings inside were extremely simple. There was only a long square table, and on top of it, there was only a single jade pearl. Miaobo's eyes, however, shone. His face was filled with ecstasy. He hurriedly walked over, and grabbed onto that bottle. Spirit congealing dew. He exclaimed in surprise. He tightened his grip on the bottle. The hell is spirit congealing dew? I've never heard of it before. Miaobo, however, had already impatiently pulled out the bottle. Gulping it down, he immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, and began to meditate. The divine energy around his body began to condense. At the same time, a few impurities were being expelled as well. So it was a spirit congealing dew. Zhu Yao understood. Actually, she was a little doubtful earlier. Though Miao Bo was an earth deity, the divine energy around his body was scattered. It didn't seem like he had been tempered by the Ascension Tribulation lightning, as he was unbelievably weak. There was only one possibility for this situation, and that was, he was a stowaway. He did not undergo the tempering of the Ascension Tribulation lightning. This could also explain why he was doing so poorly. Furthermore, this spirit-congealing dew was completely useless to normal deities. Yet he desired it so much. Most likely, he wanted to use this to cleanse the impurities in his body and become a true deity. Wait a minute. Cleanse impurities. She recalled that the body-congealing dew art she learned back then had this as well. And the method of body-congealing dew was usually squatting. Miao Bo couldn't be squatting as well, right? There wasn't a toilet here, hey. Could it be that he was going to settle it on the spot? No. Her entire sword instantly felt uncomfortable. She did not have the interest to watch someone glide. She was just an innocent sword. Please let her go. Gulyalu. A soul-stirring accompaniment sounded. It's here. Miao Bo's expression changed, as though he had just recalled this serious physiological problem. Standing up, he held onto his stomach with both hands and looked around. His face was filled with anxiousness. Realizing that the surroundings were completely clean, and not even a piece of toilet paper could be found, the accompaniment in his stomach sounded even more cheerful. In an instant, he could not be bothered with anything else, and immediately rushed out of the room. Fortunately, he did not grab her along the way. Zhu Yao heaved a long sigh. Suddenly, the door was slammed open with a bang. The hell, warrior! Why did you come back again? Miao Bo's face had already turned ashen. He walked straight in, and with every step he took, there was a sound behind him. It was the sound of a person's body releasing some kind of pungent odor. The puffing sounds were especially cheerful. At this moment, Zhu Yao even had the urge to die. What was he trying to do? Don't tell me I have to bring her along when I glide. Do you need to have such a heavy taste? Miao Bo had a conflicted look on his face as he looked around. His eyes were filled with embarrassment and annoyance as the special music became more and more intense. In the end, he gritted his teeth, turned around, and walked towards the corner of the room. Then with a whoosh he took off his pants. He actually took off his pants. He actually took off his pants without even struggling. Her butt is quite white. Apui. Most importantly, he really did it in this room. Mr. Policeman. There was a hooligan here. A highly toxic chemical gas suddenly filled the entire room. Zhu Yao held her breath. She was wrong. She shouldn't have left that weapon room in the first place, and she shouldn't have helped him defeat those 3 gold deities. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come into contact with such dangerous chemicals. Zhu Yao desperately held her breath, yet her chest grew even stuffier. Finally, her vision darkened. She had held it in for too long. When she once again opened her eyes, Zhu Yao saw Eugène's face that was asking for a beating. She subconsciously shouted out. But Eugène, who was still smiling earlier, instantly darkened. What did you say? He instantly exploded. I'm such an outstanding beauty, and you actually said it looks like a butt? Which part of it looks like a butt? She didn't say it looked like a butt either? Zhu Yao pushed his face away and sat up. Looking around, she realized that she had once again returned to the straw cottage in Lightning Divine Hall. Where's my master? Eugène materialized a water mirror and seriously inspected his own face. It's still beautiful. Only then did he feel at ease and replied. Little Yan Yan went to look for you. Look for me? Zhu Yao was startled. Didn't you say that you had turned into a sword earlier? He went to look for the object that you possessed. Eugène nodded. He sized her up for a moment, and a hint of doubt surfaced on his face. I say, little grand disciple, is there something special about your soul? Why is it that all of the soul-suppressing objects and soul-suppressing arts in Lightning Divine Hall are completely ineffective against you? Special? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. Does being exceptionally unlucky count? His disconnection was as bad as Qidian's backend. When is master coming back? When he finds the sword you possessed, he will naturally come back. Eugène reached out his hand, wanting to stroke her head, only to be slapped away by Zhu Yao. He sighed and said, "Oh right. How did you come back this time?" The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. She didn't want to talk about it. Don't mention the past again. What did he mean? Oh right, when little Yin left, he left behind a voice transmission talisman. If you have any matters, you can use this talisman to send a message to him. He passed her a purple gold talisman. Zhu Yao excitedly received it. Just as she was about to inject spiritual energy into it, she suddenly recalled that her current body was at the 0 rank, and immediately stretched it back. Open it. Why did she feel that she had become the little follower of this master and disciple? He was clearly the senior. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Zhu Yao pushed it away in disgust. Only then did Eugene reach out his hand, and the voice transmission talisman emitted a white light. Master. She immediately called out. Yu Yan's voice immediately sounded. Yao. You've returned? Amen, she nodded. Suddenly, she recalled that she was currently in a phone call state, and the other party could not see her clearly. She then continued. I just woke up. Master, where are you? MT Fengtua. MT Fengtua's sect master Qi Jin deeply felt that today was definitely the most exciting day in his several tens of thousands of years of cultivation. 100 years ago, he had already sensed that the barrier to his cultivation was about to break through. He finally chose this day to charge into the heavy deity realm, and forcefully withstood 81 bolts of tribulation lightning. He had officially leveled up into a heavy deity, and for a moment, he felt the divine energy behind his back glowing with a golden light. He immediately decided to hold a celebration or something. Invite all of those old ruffians from the Four Corners continent, and show off for a bit. In the end, he had just climbed out of the lightning tribulation, and before he could even feel happy, a person dressed in white, who emitted a cold aura from 360 degrees around him without any blind spots, appeared next to him. MT Fengtua's sect master? When that person spoke, his voice seemed as though it could freeze, and it was so cold that Qi Jin could not help but shiver. Who was this person? He actually dared to speak to him in such a manner? For a moment he was a little enraged. He was a dignified sect master, the #1 person in the southern continent, yet he was being looked down upon in such a manner. He definitely could not tolerate it. Audacious. Who are you? However, that white-robed person did not even spare him a glance, and simply minded his own business as he spoke. I want to inspect all of MT Fengtua's divine artifact rooms. Divine artifact rooms? So this person was here to snatch MT Fengtua's divine artifacts? And the moment he opened his mouth, he mentioned all of the divine artifact rooms. Qi Jin immediately refuted. Impudent. Chapter 335. Bolts of lightning that were even more terrifying than the tribulation lightning of Jin Stygian heavy immortal struck down. The pressure that filled the sky was almost suffocating. Jin didn't even get a clear look before he was struck back into the ground, sinking deep into the ground along with a piece of his once proud heart. The terrifying lightning didn't completely strike him. Most of it went towards Yongtua Mountain. Yongtua Mountain, which was known as the backbone of the celestial world, suddenly broke with a rumble. Broken. The #1 immortal mountain in the immortal world, MT Runta, was destroyed just like that. No, this can't be real. There must be something wrong with the way he opened his eyes. Qi Jin was completely dumbfounded. Wasn't it just asking for directions? Was there a need to be so savage? Trembling, he stretched out a hand from the pit and pointed in a direction. The white figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Only then did the bottom of Qi Jin's heart tremble as 3 words flashed across it. Lightning Divine Hall. Why would a high deity of Lightning Divine Hall appear here? What happened to the promise that Lightning Divine Hall would not easily come out? With a great effort, Lu Jin pulled himself out of the pit. Suddenly, he felt that it was good to be alive. Turning his head to look in the direction of Fengta Mountain, he suddenly remembered that there were so many immortal artifact rooms on Fengta Mountain, and they were all guarded by people. It was hard to imagine how many people would be blind enough to stop him. This was the foundation of MT Fengtua's tens of thousands of years of foundation. Exalted immortal, wait. Do we need a road sign? Promise me. Can you leave me half of the mountain? As expected, when Zhu woke up this time, she did not stay for long. In a blink of an eye, she once again turned into that idiotic sword. Fortunately, she was no longer in the room with the poisonous gas. Miaobo was wandering around with her in his hands. The immortal qi in his body had become much more condensed. It seemed that his earth immortal cultivation had stabilized. He had successfully removed the illegal immigration card and officially became a legal citizen of the celestial realm. Miaobo seemed to be very happy as he wandered aimlessly in this strange place. There was even a trace of a smile on his face. It was unknown if it was because his cultivation had increased. The detoxification felt good. In any case, compared to looking for the spirit concentration nectar with a clear purpose before, this was much better. This time, it was purely a blind stroll. He turned into a long corridor. On both sides of the corridor were tightly shut rooms, and each door had a different color. There were even a few profound formations set up on it. Dense immortal energy faintly seeped out from within, and the deeper one went, the denser the immortal energy became. Miaobo stopped in front of the first room, and carefully looked at the array formation on the door. Clearly, he wasn't familiar with the formation, and couldn't find a way to open it. He looked around. Suddenly, he noticed that there was a bottle-shaped dent on the lampstand beside the door. Why does it look like a trap? Miaobo naturally thought so as well. After pondering for a moment, his eyes suddenly lit up and he took out a jade bottle from his bosom. It was the one who had just filled the spirit concentration dew. He directly put the bottle in. It was neither too big nor too small, just right. As soon as he let go, the formation on the door disappeared. The door swung open. Inside was another extremely simple room with a square stone table in the middle. There was a jade bottle on the table. However, there was an additional stone bed on the right side of the room. It looked like a secluded abode. Miaobo walked in. Just as he picked up the bottle, the door closed with a loud bang. Miaobo panicked, yet he couldn't open the door no matter what. He had even tried using various types of mystic arts. Yet the door did not budge in the slightest. He frowned, and had no choice but to look at the bottle in his hand. Pulling it open, a dense immortal energy surged towards his face. Miaobo was instantly overjoyed. He poured it out, and a Maltese apui, a divine pellet, was lying in his hand. Miaobo was a little hesitant. This pellet did not look simple, but because he had never seen it before, he did not dare to test it. He hesitated for a moment. In the end, he gritted his teeth, sat on the stone bed, and immediately swallowed the pellet. Zhu seemed to instantly see the divine energy in his body skyrocketing, as though some sort of powerful energy was endlessly leaking out from his body. It crazily drilled into his meridians. His expression was filled with pain, and his sweat dripped down like water. His expression grew more and more painful, until his meridians shattered, and he began to bleed. A moment later, the clothes on his body were dyed red with blood. He was bleeding like he was on his period. It seemed like that pellet was a divine pellet that could allow one to quickly level up, as the divine energy inside was dense. Unfortunately, the digestion speed was a little too fast. Miaobo was evidently unable to hold on any longer, and was about to explode. As a sword that did not have the ability to move, Zhu suddenly had a bad premonition. As expected, Miaobo could not even maintain the hand seals he was using to meditate, and puked out a mouthful of blood. His hand subconsciously pushed to the side, and he immediately pressed onto Zhu sword hilt. In the next moment, an overwhelming amount of divine energy immediately rushed towards her. The hell? Your grandpa! Zhu entire sword felt unwell. The sudden surge of divine energy was like a flood that had opened the floodgates, rushing into her body. She could even faintly hear the sound of the sword breaking. However, the divine energy was still endless. She really wanted to release a few bolts of lightning to release the divine energy, but the door was sealed shut. If she were to release it, it would collapse before she was prepared. When that time comes, she would be buried alive. No, I can't release it. Suddenly, she recalled the method she used to refine artifacts. All of the artifacts required spiritual energy to be infused into them, so divine energy should be the same as well. Right now, she had no choice but to give it a try. She immediately guided the divine energy and used the artifact refining method to transfer it into the sword's body, arranging it inch by inch. Strangely, the moment she guided it, the chaotic divine energy earlier suddenly calmed down, lining up and entering the sword's body. Miaobo was startled. As though he realized that it could absorb his excess divine energy, his expression turned joyful. He finally sat up and placed the sword on his legs. After adjusting his posture, he continued to raise his cultivation level. After an unknown period of time, when Miaobo's body no longer had any excess divine energy, the man and sword finally stopped absorbing the divine energy. Miaobo's cultivation level instantly rose to the profound deity level, while Zhu Yao's second-ranked divine sword was still a second-ranked divine sword. However, the XX symbols on the sword suddenly turned into YYYYY. What's the meaning of this? With a creak, the door that Miaobo was unable to push open even after expending a tremendous amount of effort, opened on its own. There was actually a time limit for this secret room? Did opening the door mean that he wanted to renew the fee? Miaobo did not continue to stay. Casting a dirt removal art on himself, he then carried Zhu Yao out of the room. Just as he returned to the corridor, the door to the adjacent room once again opened on its own. The inside was exactly the same as the previous room. There was also a stone table with a bottle on it, and an empty stone bed. Zhu Yao suddenly thought of a term, leveling room. The rooms in this row couldn't all be of the same standard, right? Placing a bottle of medicinal pellets, and then leveling up according to the order of levels. After leveling up a level, one would be able to enter the next training ground. Miaobo had evidently thought of this as well. This time, without any hesitation, he immediately walked in. Picking up the bottle on the table, he poured out the medicinal pellets and swallowed them. Then he turned around and sat on the stone bed. He began to meditate. The divine energy once again surged. Zhu Yao was once again treated as a buffer. Your grandpa. Flip's table. Why the hell did she have to watch the entire process of someone else leveling up? As Zhu Yao expected, every single room here was the same. The only difference was the divine pellets placed on the tables. Each pellet was denser than the last. The amount of divine energy Miaobo absorbed increased as well, and his cultivation level rose like a rocket. From a profound deity to a late-stage profound deity, then to a gold deity, a mid-stage gold deity, a late-stage gold deity, paragon. And the patterns on Zhu Yao's sword changed as well. From XXYY to Su, and then to CCDD. She had almost used up all the alphabets. In the end, she stopped at a row of BBBB. Zhu Yao. That Miaobo finally walked into the final room. And this time, the amount of spiritual energy in the medicinal pellet was even denser than before. Zhu Yao could clearly sense that he was charging towards something with all his might, as his face alternated between green and purple. And the patterns on Zhu Yao's sword were alternating between SSS and BBB. When the dense divine energy began to shrink and solidify, the aura around Miaobo's body changed. He had successfully charged into a heavy deity. He was a winner in life. He had reached the peak so quickly. Zhu Yao sighed with a face that had the word SB written on it. Miaobo was very excited as well, as he began to laugh out loud. In an instant, his wanton laughter resounded in the entire space. Heavy deity. I actually cultivated into a heavy deity. He took a few deep breaths, as though he was suppressing the wild joy in his heart. Suddenly, his eyes sank, as though he had thought of something. He coldly said, Fanjian, it's time for you to repay me. Fujian? Who? He actually came up with such a refreshing name. His expression turned cold, and in an instant his entire being turned dark. Master, when this disciple returns, I will definitely treat you well. So Fujian was his master. Then wasn't he that pavilion master fan from before? It seemed like he had a deep grudge against him. Miaobo stood up. Holding on to Zhu Yao, he left the room and headed back in the direction he came from. He directly used the formation to return to that strange cave. This time, the cave was closed, and what appeared beneath his feet was not rocks either, but a gigantic tongue. Most probably, the The cave had been closed the moment he entered, all for the sake of capturing him. However, the current Miaobo was no longer the same as he was back then. He was already a heavy deity. This cave was basically unable to stop him. With a twist of his hand, countless spiritual swords materialized, and he immediately struck out. With a loud boom, a hole was created, and he was instantly sent flying out. He turned back to look at that huge mouth which was bleeding nonstop. With a cold laugh, he swung his sword. Zhu Yao simply felt a surge of divine energy entering her body, forming a fire-type formation, and was about to be released from her body. He wanted to kill that cave-guarding mystic beast. Zhu Yao's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to release the mystic art, she forcefully pushed it back. Miaobo, who had already ascended to the level of a heavy deity, was completely different from that idiotic-looking man from before. It was as though all of his cowardice and inferiority had suddenly disappeared, and he had become arrogant and reckless. However, his face was filled with hostility, and his entire being was dark. She did not like Miaobo who was like this, and she could not help but feel a hint of rejection. Miaobo was startled for a moment, as though he was very dissatisfied that the sword did not attack according to his wishes. A hint of disdain even surfaced in his eyes. He was no longer the person who treated a second-rank divine sword as a treasure after picking it up. He glanced at the sword in his hand, and then looked at the heavily injured cave-guarding mystic beast. With a disappointed look, he flew away on his sword. Zhu Yao looked at the direction they were heading in. They were heading towards Mt Fengta, which they came from. It seemed like he was going to take revenge on that Fan Jian. In less than 15 minutes, they flew out of the forest and arrived above an ocean. Miaobo once again glanced at Zhu Yao in his hand, frowned, and muttered. As expected, her rank is too low. As he said that, without the slightest reluctance, he tossed her away. Zhu Yao instantly turned into an arc and fell into the ocean. Your sister. Miaobo believed that all of his misfortunes were caused by Fan Jian. Back then, he was after all a nascent soul practitioner in the lower realm, and could be considered as someone who was respected by others. However, Fan Jian just had to fall for him, and when he ascended, he forcefully kept him into his demigod pearl, and brought him to the higher realm. He unexpectedly obtained a divine body, but because he did not undergo the tempering of tribulation lightning, he could barely be considered as an earth deity, and was ridiculed by others. Although Fan Jian took him in as his disciple, he never cared about his life or death. He simply wanted to find someone who was willing to work for him. And because his divine energy had dissipated, he was basically unable to raise his cultivation. 1,000 years had passed, and Fan Jian had become a gold deity, but he was still a lowly earth deity. Furthermore, he had entered many dangerous lands to help him search for various treasures. He refused to accept this. Why was he always so high and mighty, while he himself was reduced to dust? One time he obtained a secret scroll by chance, and it recorded in detail that within the mouth of a mystic beast, there was a spatial ring containing spirit condensation dew. Back then he understood that his chance had arrived. Hence, he entered the forest of absolute separation several times in search of that place. Then he unexpectedly obtained a divine sword that could conceal his aura. Hence, without any suspense, he entered the spatial ring. Furthermore, he successfully refined his divine body inside, and became a true earth deity. However, his pleasant surprise was far from just that. He actually discovered a divine pellet that could raise his cultivation level, and it actually allowed him to directly raise his cultivation level to a heavy deity. What kind of concept was a heavy deity? Even the sect master Chu Tuoshan of one of the 4 great continents was merely a gold deity paragon. Currently, the number of people in the divine realm who had reached the level of a heavy deity could be counted with one's fingers. No one could stop Chu Tuoshan. Hence he wanted revenge. He wanted blood. He wanted to tear them apart. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he had to take revenge. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that that person deserved to die. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became, and the more pleased he became. It was as if he could already see the terrified expression on Fan Jian's face when he found out that he was already a heavy deity. He would definitely make him pay for this. A pleased smile appeared on Miaobo's lips. His heart was filled with hatred towards Fan Jian. However, he completely did not realize that with his abilities in the lower realm, he had no hope of ascending. He increased the speed of his flying sword. Previously, he had flown for a day and a night, but now he only needed a few flashes to return to Chu Tuoshan. He was so focused on revenge that he did not notice Chu Tuoshan's abnormality at all. The pressure of a heavy deity was fully unleashed, and he headed straight for Fan Jian. As he wished, he saw Fan Jian's shocked expression. He walked over step by step, like a death god that could take away the life of an ant in front of him at any time. Just as he was a few meters away from Fan Jian, a white light suddenly flashed before his eyes. Instantly, he felt a chill beside him, and a cold voice sounded. Chapter 336. Disciple? What disciple? Miaobo frowned. He was furious at this reckless fellow who had suddenly appeared. The moment he thought of revenge, he saw that his enemy was right in front of him, but was blocked by someone who was unwilling to die. Naturally, he was furious. What does your disciple have to do with me? Scram! He shouted without thinking. Anyone who stops me will die. He didn't even think about it before casting a spell. He was a dignified heavy immortal, and there was actually someone who didn't have eyes and dared to stop him. He had to let him know his power. In the next moment he really knew how powerful it was. Miaobo didn't even have time to react before he was struck silly by the tribulation lightning that filled the sky. Like a salted fish, he was struck from the front to the back, and struck from all angles. His whole body was sore and comfortable. When he came back to his senses, he had already been struck from a dignified heavy immortal all the way back to an earth immortal. He was lying on the ground like a piece of charcoal, and he didn't even have the strength to move. High deity. The sect master of Yingtua Mountain, Qi Jin, hugged onto Yu Yan's thigh with a face full of tears and snot. What happened to the promise of leaving half of the mountain for me? Only then did he stop the earth-shattering tribulation lightning and coldly asked, "Where is my disciple?" The moment she was thrown out, Zhu Yao understood what it meant to burn the bridge after crossing it. Thinking back to when Miaobo was still an idiot, he brought her to look at the stars and the moon, and even called her little Tian Tian. Now that he had struck it rich, he actually threw her away without hesitation. Zhu Yao's sword heart received 10,000 points of damage. Seeing that she was sliding down in a straight line, the surface of the sea she left behind was getting closer and closer. Zhu Yao had already made up her mind to enter the water, when she suddenly heard a dull thud. That's right, it wasn't a splash but a thud. Ouch! A cry of pain was heard. Which bastard threw me? It's an immortal sword. In the next moment he was grabbed by someone. A blue-robed man with a jade crown appeared in front of him. He had a furious look on his face as he raised his head and looked up. He immediately cursed, "Fuck you. Which bastard is plotting against me? If you have the guts, come out and fight with me. What kind of man is hiding? Come out. Come out for your master. Don't hide and make a sound. I know you're there. Come out, come out, come out. Fuck, are you Auntie Shay?" The lines were all the same. The man suddenly froze and stared at the sword in his hand. You can talk? There was actually an immortal sword that could speak? Could it be the original body of a spirit monster? Right. How did you know my name is Shui? The hell, you really call me Aunt Snowhay? Zhu Yao and her avatar were both dumbfounded. Wait a minute, you can hear me? This daddy isn't deaf. Why can't I hear you? Shui glared at her, and then waved his sword hilt. Hurry and tell me who's your master. Why did he throw you at me? Tell him to come out and fight me fair and square if he has the guts. It turned out that he was a violent maniac. It wasn't someone who threw you. I was thrown by someone, and when I fell, I hit you. Nonsense. Shui was instantly enraged. This daddy has been in isolation underwater for several hundred years, and no one has ever discovered it. How could there be such a coincidence that the item he threw would fall here? What do you think this place is? You want to lie to me with just a second-rank immortal sword? He coldly snorted with a domineering and cool look. Furthermore, there's a barrier underwater. That master of yours must have used some sort of despicable move to throw you down. As he said that, he immediately walked towards the barrier and pointed at the transparent barrier that isolated the seawater. With a proud expression he said, "This enchantment was personally set up by me. Even a late-stage heavy immortal cultivator might not be able to break it. You're just a broken immortal sword." He acted as though he was going to swing it towards the enchantment, as though he wanted to prove the quality of his formation. Zhu Yao's entire sword slashed forward, and a ripping sound could be heard. It was the sound of something being sliced open. In the next moment, a large amount of seawater surged in. The barrier shattered with a resounding sound, and it quickly submerged the entire isolated area. A moment later, above the boundless ocean, a violent gale swept up the dark clouds. In between the dark clouds and the ocean, a petrel, a pui, a human head popped out. He was holding onto a piece of driftwood in one hand, and a second-rank immortal sword in the other, with a what-the-hell look on his face. Grabbing onto the sword, the man and the sword silently stared at each other for 10 seconds. Something called resentment floated in the air. Zhu Yao mourned for him for 2 seconds. "I already told you, I was thrown down. If you don't listen to the words of immortal swords, you'll suffer." "Oh young man." Shui Yi's expression darkened. Gritting his teeth he replied, "The hell, this granddaddy believes you." He cast a light body art and leapt up from the wooden plank in his hand. He quickly moved above the water surface, heading towards the north. Wow, he's floating on water with his light body art. At that moment, she felt that this unlucky young man was a whole. Shui Yi hopped on the ocean for a long while like a waterfly, before finally arriving on land. He stopped on an island. "Why aren't you flying on a sword?" Zhu Yao asked. He turned around and ruthlessly glared at her. "Do you think this daddy doesn't want to? This daddy's entire fortune is in the water, all right?" It wasn't that he didn't want to fly on a sword, but he didn't have a sword to fly on. "Who told you to be cheap?" Shui Yi paused for a moment before looking at Zhu Yao. "Hey, just what are you? You're clearly a second-rank divine sword. Yet you're able to break my barrier." That's a problem. She had to think of a way to fool him. "Actually, I'm not a sword. Amen." Shui Yi sized her up for a moment. "You can't be saying that you're a blade, right? You're the blade. Your entire family is a blade." "I'm saying, I'm not a weapon in the first place." "Then what are you?" Zhu Yao let out a long sigh. Using all of the acting skills she had in her entire life, she said, "Actually, I'm a princess." Then, she modified the story of the Frog Prince a little, and passionately narrated the story of the princess of the Divine Sword and Divine Sword. P.S. Second rank. That's why, as long as I find the kiss of true love, I will be able to change back. Shui Yi's expression was like this. "It's true, young man. You have to believe in divine arts." Zhu Yao continued to brainwash him. The corner of Shui Yi's lips twitched, and he seriously asked, "Is the word idiot written on my face?" Smart people were the most annoying. Clearly, when she was in the modern era, not a single wimp in the neighborhood did not believe in her. "I think you've been struck by a soul assimilation art, right?" Shui Yi analyzed. "Sealed in this sword." His guess was pretty accurate, huh? "You want to return to your original body?" That's right, that's right." "You want me to send you back?" That's right, that's right." "I'm not going." "The hell? Then why the hell did you grumble in front of me?" "Why should I send you back? It's not like it benefits me in any way." He stretched his waist and said with a sloppy look. "Furthermore, you're the one who destroyed my barrier earlier. I don't even have a place to stay anymore. I was clearly the one who slashed it. So it's my fault. There are quite a few treasures in there, you know? They're all prepared for my future. Even if you return to your divine body, you'll still have to compensate." "Wait a minute." He paused halfway through his words. Suddenly, as though he had thought of something, he turned to look at Zhu Yao on the ground. His hands trembled a little as he pointed at her. Why you're a female sword?" "The hell's a female sword?" The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched, and she asked in return, "Are you a man?" Shui Yi did not reply. His entire being was stunned. His entire body tensed up, and that bronze-colored face suddenly began to be dyed with a strange shade of red. spreading all the way to his ears. "What's wrong with your face?" Zhu Yao asked. Suddenly, he seemed to be frightened. He jumped up abruptly and took a few steps back. His eyes began to wander around. He looked to the left and to the right, but he did not dare to look at the sword on the ground. No, nothing. Why are you stuttering again?" He grew even more flustered, and decided to just turn his back around. His two hands intertwined, and his two big fingers were drawing circles back and forth. "Female, it's actually the female that mother mentioned. What should I do? So nervous? This is the first time I'm interacting with them at such a close distance. She'll definitely like my strong body, right? She definitely will, right? Hey, can you not make me listen when you're whispering? Hey, what the hell is a female? Who wants to like your strong body?" I. He finally turned around, and when he spoke he was still stuttering. "I'll send you back. No thank you." She had a bad premonition. No need to be so polite. Who's being polite with you? Heh. Who knows, maybe she'll fall in love with me after a long time. Who wants to fall for you? I have a man, alright? Also, what you're thinking in your heart. Can you not say it out loud? You. Where are you going? Where? Don't pretend you didn't hear me, hey. I don't want to go anywhere. However, he was already walking towards her. He wanted to reach out his hand to pick her up, but after some thought, he realized that he wasn't cautious enough. With a whoosh, he pulled down half of his robe and placed it on the cloth. He carefully held it up. Is it the east? With a shy and timid look, he carried Zhu Yao, circulated the light body art once again, and headed towards the east. Zhu Yao, that she seemed to have been kidnapped by a single dog. Divine Sword Maiden. There's a divine city up ahead. Let's snatch a house to stay in. Shui looked at the sword in his hand with a fawning look. Snatch? Are you a bandit? Don't worry, I've been here before. Shui explained with a stern look. The houses here are easy to snatch. What have you done in the past? As Shui said that, his figure flashed while carrying her, and he had already arrived in front of the divine city. In order to prove his words, he even warmly greeted the deity practitioner guarding the gate. Yo, long time no see. That deity practitioner's face instantly paled. As though he had seen a ghost, he immediately sprinted into the city. As he ran, he shouted loudly, "Hurry and run. That fellow with the surname Shui is back." In an instant, the bustling city instantly turned silent for 2 seconds. In the next moment, everyone made the same action. Summoning their flying swords, they rose into the air and madly flew in all directions. Not a single one of them turned back to look. In less than half a minute, not a single person could be seen in this small city. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. "Please touch your chest and tell me, just what did you do to these people, hey?" "Nothing much," Shui said with an innocent look. "I've only been here 3 times. The first time, I wanted to stay in the city lord's house. He didn't allow it, so I beat him up. The second time, I wanted to feed him some alcohol, but that person said he wanted to pay, so I beat him up again. The third time, they didn't allow me to enter the city, so I beat up everyone in the city. That's it, I actually didn't do much. Don't make beating people up sound like eating, hey. If this was considered as not doing much, what would happen if he wanted to do something else? Divine Sword Maiden, which house do you want to stay in? Feel free to choose." Shui waved his hand, and in an instant, a tyrannical CEO appeared on his body. He looked as though he owned the entire divine city. Is this guy from the underworld? Can't I leave the guild? Aunt Shui, I'm a divine sword. I don't need to rest. Oh. He lowered his head with a disappointed look. What a pity. Mother said that if I give a female something, she will like me, fall in love with me, and be unable to stop herself from me. Call your mother out. I want to talk to her about life. How many times did I tell you not to say what's on your mind, hey? Don't think that just because you don't have quotation marks, she won't be able to hear you, alright? Then Divine Sword Maiden, let us replenish some of the items we need. Then continue on our way. Did you activate the automatic blocking function against words you don't want to hear? Shui walked into a divine artifact shop, looked around, and then took out a 5th-rank flying sword from a sealed cabinet at the very end of the shop. Then he calmly returned to the lobby, and casually took away all the 4th-rank, 3rd-rank, 2nd-rank, and 1st-rank divine artifacts. Before he left, he even took away the storage ring in the drawer of the counter. She silently lit a candle for the shop owner. Zhu Yao thought that he was going to fly on his flying sword, but instead, he went to a medicinal pellet shop on the left, a talisman shop on the right, and a talisman shop on the opposite side. Finally, he even turned into a material shop. Like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, he swept all the items into the storage ring in his hand. Only when it was no longer able to hold anything did he stop with a regretful look. He touched the ring on his finger. It's a little lacking. Zhu Yao really wanted to say this on behalf of the citizens of the Divine City. Your sister. Divine Sword Maiden, we can depart now. Shui found a piece of white divine muslin, wrapped her entire body in it, and hung it on his body. He didn't carry it on his back, instead he hung it across his chest, making him look especially silly. All right. Where are you going? The east. Zhu Yao had already given up on resisting. Instead, as long as it wasn't something he liked to hear, he would automatically block it out. She might as well go along with him. As long as she returned to Lightning Divine Hall, it would be fine. All right. Shui summoned the 5th-rank flying sword he had just plundered, and was about to fly on it. Suddenly, a heavy deity's pressure instantly assaulted them. Shui lost his balance and knelt onto the ground. Chapter 337. The person who came was dressed in a white and black robe. He was a middle-aged man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. He was tall and slender, and his face was filled with anger. He fiercely glared at Shui, and the pressure on his body instantly increased. Today this seat shall eliminate you, you scourge. The moment his words fell, the rain of swords that filled the sky descended toward Shui. Just as he was about to be pierced into a bloody hedgehog, Shui gritted his teeth. His figure flashed, and he retreated several tens of meters away. Summoning a weapon, he dashed towards the other party. That person had the cultivation of a late-stage heavy deity, while Shui was merely a gold deity paragon. Under the suppression of their levels, he could be considered a genius for being able to escape the suppression so quickly. However, the cultivation of a heavy deity would not be that simple. Before Shui could even get close, he was blocked by the other party's formation. Immediately after, icicles that filled the sky came flying towards him. However, Shui did not dodge. Instead, he swung his sword and slashed. In an instant, 5 to 6 icicles that were as thick as a human were sliced apart by him. Then he turned his body to the side and smashed another piece with a punch. Relying on his brute strength, he had already rushed in front of that person. Wow. Such a direct method of attack was rarely seen. Zhu Yao was a little startled. Logically speaking, due to spiritual energy cultivation, human cultivators were good at long-range attacks. Professions with low HP and high MP rarely engaged in melee combat. After becoming immortals, everyone's HP bar increased, and their HP and MP increased. But in the end, he still couldn't change his habit of long-range combat. Shui, however, immediately charged forward, and it was clear that his fists were even smoother than his swords. He could be considered an anomaly among deities. That heavy deity immediately materialized 2 ice dragons and attacked Shui. Wherever the ice dragons passed by, layers of ice instantly formed on the ground. Shui's figure was nimble. He immediately jumped onto the dragon's back, and once again threw a punch at the dragon's body. Unexpectedly, not only did he fail to shatter the ice dragon, but layers of ice covered his hand instead, and it was spreading towards his body. His expression changed, and he was about to retract his hand, but it was too late. The area covered in ice had long been connected to the dragon's body, and he could not pull it out. The other ice dragon had already turned around, and was about to bite him. Even Zhu Yao could feel the bone-piercing chill coming from the dragon's body. It was so cold that even her fragile second-grade sword felt as though it was about to shatter. Shui did not hesitate. With a flash of the sword in his right hand, He instantly chopped off his own arm. He instantly retreated more than 10 meters. He quickly sealed the surrounding acupuncture points. He had to stop the bleeding from his arm. Why did everyone like to chop off their arms these days? That heavy deity coldly snorted. This time, don't even think of leaving here alive. Die. The aura around his body suddenly changed, and he used Icebound 1,000 miles. Instantly, the air became as cold as ice. Large snowflakes fell from the sky. The entire city began to freeze inch by inch, and layers of glaciers covered the entire city. Shui turned around and retreated. However, he couldn't keep up with the speed of the ice forming. Soon there was no place for him to stand. He could only fly on his sword and rush out of the immortal city. But the glacier did not stop. Furthermore, it was getting faster and faster, and the snowflakes in the sky would turn into ice as soon as they landed on the ground. Shui barely maintained the defensive barrier. However, as soon as the snowflakes landed, a layer of ice appeared on the barrier. If this went on, even if he was not frozen, he would be dragged to death by the snowflakes. Aunt Shui, let me out and pour your divine energy into the sword. Zhu Yao had no choice but to speak up. If this went on, not just him, she herself was about to be frozen as well. No. Shui strongly shook his head in a principled manner. How can I let a female take action? Don't worry, I will protect you. Hihei, who knows, when she sees my heroic figure, she might immediately worship me, fall in love with me, and be unable to stop herself from me. How heroic? What kind of situation is this? Can you not freaking say what you're thinking? The ice on Shui's barrier grew thicker and thicker. For a moment, it could not hold on any longer, and with a thud, it fell from the sky. Zhu Yao simply sensed that the aura around his body had instantly disappeared. Even the temperature of his body was beginning to dissipate, and his heartbeat and breathing were no longer as well. The hell, it can't be right? He died just like that? Zhu Yao's heart sank. Only then did the snowflakes in the sky stop falling. That heavy deity had already flown over on his sword as well. He took 2 steps forward, glanced at Shui who was sealed in the ice, and coldly snorted. You overestimate yourself. With a wave of his sleeves, he turned around. Shui, who had already lost all signs of life earlier, suddenly made his move. With a single punch, he pierced through the layer of ice and directly struck the heavy deity's chest. In an instant, fresh blood flowed in all directions, and his flesh split open. If the other party had not retreated in time, his chest would have most likely been pierced through. You cheated. The heavy deity retreated in a flash, and hurriedly sealed the meridians in his body. His expression was furious, as though he could not wait to pounce forward and bite Shui a few times. It's just a change of battle method. Who knew that you'd be that stupid? Shui flew out from the layer of ice, and his smile was especially annoying. Shameless scum. The other party cursed. Whatever you say. He shrugged. It seems like you won't be able to catch me today. It's a pity about that city that was sealed in ice by you. There are a few houses that I quite like, don't you think? That heavy deity grew even more furious. His face was flushed red from anger, and the veins on his forehead were popping out as he gritted his teeth. After taking a few deep breaths, as though he was able to suppress his anger that was on the verge of exploding, he coldly laughed. Do you think it's that easy for you to escape? He turned to look at Shui's remaining hand. You shattered my ice earlier. Do you think you'll be fine? Shui was startled for a moment. When he turned to look, there were still a few pieces of ice left on his right hand. Ice seal activate. The heavy deity once again cast an art. In an instant, a large amount of ice began to crawl up his arm and spread towards his body, about to gather at his chest. This time, Shui was truly panicking. He could not possibly abandon another arm, and it was already too late. Seeing that he was about to be drowned by the ice, Shui frowned. He gritted his teeth and immediately sat down to meditate. In an instant, the ice on the ground began to crawl up his legs. Are you courting death? The heavy deity coldly snorted. Zhu Yao had the same thought as well. If this continued, the ice on the ground would only increase, and it would spread even faster. In the next moment, Shui released his divine sense. In an instant, The divine energy in the air began to crazily gather towards him. Forbidden art. That heavy deity was startled. He suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Shui in disbelief. You want to forcefully raise your cultivation and become a heavy deity. As expected, the divine energy in the surroundings, as though it was being attracted by something, it crazily poured into Shui's body. Streaks of bloody scars instantly appeared on his already broken body. A violent gale blew, and the layer of ice on his body shattered into pieces. Even that heavy deity had to take a few steps back. Madman, you madman. When it came to cultivation, one had to take things step by step. It was not as simple as absorbing divine energy. The divine energy in the divine realm was dense. However, guiding it into the body and into the dantian was very difficult. It was extremely easy for one to be devoured by the divine energy, causing his meridians to shatter, injuring the primordial spirit. The primordial spirit was an existence equivalent to the soul. If the primordial spirit was injured, even a deity would not be able to heal it. If one's luck was good, one's cultivation would not improve at all. If one's luck was bad, one might even die. Yet Shui actually used a forbidden art, absorbing a large amount of divine energy to forcefully raise his cultivation. What was the difference between this and suicide? However, Shui did not have the intention to stop at all. Instead, he absorbed it even faster, forcefully absorbing the divine energy into his meridians. Within a few meters around his body, the divine energy formed a gigantic whirlpool. It blocked everything outside. The sky had darkened as well. Dark clouds surged, covering the entire sky. The flesh on his body was already lacerated. He was practically a bloodied man. Even Zhu Yao was a little anxious as she watched, but it was not convenient for her to stop him. He was currently at a crucial moment. If he were to be interrupted, he would most likely suffer a cultivation deviation. This divine energy rampage lasted for an entire day. Even those people from Li City had returned to spectate this spectacle. Zhu Yao silently looked outside the divine energy, at the bustling scene of the entire populace spectating how the baddie dies. She silently lit a candle for Shui. Look, this is what you get for not being a good person. At the moment of danger, there would always be people hoping for you to die. All of the deities thought that Shui would definitely die. All of the deities thought that no one could suppress such a huge divine energy rampage. All of the deities thought that the baddie had to die. However, what shocked everyone was that Shui actually walked out of that rampage unscathed. Not only did his severed arm grow back, even his cultivation had leaped to that of a heavy deity. He succeeded. The heavy deity and the spectating crowd were all dumbfounded. Shui chuckled. The might of a heavy deity was released. Other than that late-stage heavy deity practitioner, all of the spectating crowd collapsed. He did not release it for long. Instead, he pulled up the hem of his blood-dyed robe and flung it. In an instant, hundreds of blood-colored wind blades flew towards the crowd. In an instant, the entire place was in chaos. Everyone supported their barriers, retreated, and dodged. This was completely a grand drama of revenge, a domineering counterattack. Looking at the chaotic scene, Shui's smile was truly infuriating. However, he grabbed onto Zhu Yao tightly, summoned his flying sword and shouted, "Run!" He then sprinted towards the back. Zhu Yao simply felt a few streaks of light flashing past her eyes. And then, she could no longer see the figures of the deities. What happened to the promised domineering counterattack? Shui flew for several thousand kilometers, until even he himself was tired. Only then did he sit on the ground, panting heavily. Thank goodness I ran fast. He suddenly thought of something. Raising Zhu Yao, he stared at her silvery white sword, and said with sparkling eyes, "Divine Sword Maiden, did you see the battle earlier? I've broken through to the heavy deity realm. Am I very powerful, very domineering, and very cool? I only saw that when you were escaping earlier, you were very powerful, domineering, and very cool. Also, your sister's entrusted. I have a companion." Shui's face reddened, and he immediately activated his automatic shielding mode. "Ayaya, if you praise me like that, I'll feel embarrassed." "Who praised you, hey?" You've clearly just ascended to the heavy deity realm. And you're afraid that you can't beat them, which is why you ran, right? There aren't many people like me who don't lust for battle anymore. Can you be any more shameless? Shui stood up with a satisfied look. After inspecting his surroundings, he placed down a barrier at a relatively hidden place, and placed Zhu Yao inside. Divine Sword Maiden. Wait for me here for a moment. What are you doing? Zhu Yao asked. Shui raised his head to look at the sky, and said with a frown. I forcefully ascended to the heavy deity realm. So my tribulation will definitely be heavier than others. Right now, you're just a second-ranked divine sword, so you won't be able to endure it if you stay by my side. I'll leave you here for now, and I'll pick you up after I'm done with my tribulation. Oh. Only then did he stand up and walk away, choosing a place to sit down. However, he did not forget to worriedly instruct her. You have to be obedient, okay? Don't run around, okay? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes. She had to be able to run around first. Wait a minute. Tribulation? Tribulation lightning? Raising her head, dark clouds suddenly filled the sky, and thunderclouds rumbled. The hell, young man, 9 gunny sacks. There was a loud boom. A bright bolt of tribulation lightning broke through the clouds and struck down. Then it made a turn. Your sister. This daddy here has already turned into a sword. Yet you still won't let me go. Divine Sword Maiden. Shui was dumbfounded as well. Why was the lightning striking towards him? He quickly ran over, and said with a self-blaming look. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left you here. I'll help you switch to another spot. Hence, he moved it a few dozen meters behind him. Boom. Another bolt of lightning. It struck Zhu Yao's body once again. I'm sorry. I'll switch to another spot. Third bolt. Don't be anxious, I'll switch to another spot. Fourth bolt. There's a hole here, so it'll definitely be fine to place it here. Fifth bolt. I'll switch again. Young man. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Don't switch anymore. Please let me be the only sword here. And quietly endure the lightning strikes, alright? Zhu Yao had once seriously pondered over the question of why she would often be struck by lightning. However, she had never received an answer. However, she understood now because she had gotten used to it after being struck by lightning for so long. A total of 81 heavenly lightning bolts, and every single one of them landed on her sword. Fortunately, Shui had placed her on the ground, so a large portion of the lightning bolts were transmitted into the ground. She was a qualified lightning rod, and the problem of her sword cracking did not appear. The only change was that the letters on her sword had once again begun to actively switch with one another. From the single row of BBBB to the single row of SSSS, and then to the mixed doubles of SBSB. Every single English letter had rotated and combined once. In the end, there was simply no way of changing the sequence, hence a bunch of random numbers appeared, looking at the messy row of. Zhu Yao's entire sword felt uncomfortable. Zhu Yao's entire sword felt unwell. Was she considered to have been hacked to death? Divine Sword Maiden. The moment the lightning bolts ended, Shui immediately came over, and said with a concerned look. How are you? Does it hurt? Why don't? He hesitated. Drink more water. Drink your sister's water? Can drinking water cure all sorts of illnesses? Also, how the hell is a sword like me supposed to drink water? Don't worry, I'm already a heavy deity now. I will definitely protect you. He patted on his chest, and guaranteed with an arrogant look. If anyone dares to bully you, I will bite him. Are you a dog? Thank you. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched, expressing her 120% doubt. Bring me to the east, thank you. She simply wanted to immediately return to her master's side. The outside world was so scary. All right. He nodded. Picking it up, he was just about to fly on his sword. An enraged voice suddenly resounded. Shui, I've finally found you. Hand over your life. The hell, he's here again. Chapter 338. Zhu Yao deeply felt that in her previous life, she must have destroyed the Milky Way galaxy in order to meet such an unreliable person like Shui. Ever since he had picked her up, She had been in constant trouble. People kept coming to settle scores with her. Some of these people had their immortal treasures seized by him. Some had their cultivation abodes occupied by him. And there were even some that were heavily injured by him. All of them hated her to the core, and looked like they wanted to skin her alive. Every cultivator he met along the way knew him. This was the first time Zhu Yao had seen someone with such a wide range of aggro. It seemed as though there would be people charging out to fight with him every once in a while. Some were alone, some were in groups of 3 to 5. She was shocked at the beginning, but she soon calmed down. Instead, someone would jump out from time to time and shout, "Evil immortal, return my treasures! Evil immortal, return my abode to me! Immortal Diablo, return my..." and so on and so forth, until that delicate-looking Xian immortal jumped out. "Evil immortal, return my wife!" Zhu Yao silently looked at Shui. "Yo, I didn't expect you to be so selfish." Shui was stunned for a moment, as though he did not expect him to say something like that. "Nonsense. Who stole your wife?" He looked at the sword in front of him in a panic. "Little sword immortal, don't listen to his nonsense. My heart is pure. What does it have to do with me? Why did he have to explain it to me? To tell you the truth, He blushed and turned his head away shyly. I'm still a virgin. After a long while." "Oh. What does that have to do with me? Flips table. How dare you be so cunning?" That profound deity immediately exploded. He pointed at Shui and accused with a pained expression. "If you hadn't forcefully barged into my wife's closed-door training place in the overflowing Cloud Sea, how could she have self-destructed?" Overflowing Cloud Sea. Shui was stunned. "That's right." The man gritted his teeth and said, "It's that underwater cultivation cave abode." "The bottom of the sea? Wasn't that where she was picked up by Shui back then? My wife and I spent 1,000 years. That was why he built a cave abode there. I didn't expect." The man complained with a pained expression. "You beast, you actually took advantage of my absence to do something to my wife, causing her to self-destruct. Today, I'll take your life to avenge her." "Nonsense." Shui forcefully shook his head, and said with a serious expression, "I took that place from a male cultivator. I am an immortal with principles. How could I lay my hands on a weak female? You can wrong me, but you can't insult my taste." Zhu Yao. "The hell does this have anything to do with character?" The man snorted coldly. With a wave of his sleeves, a shadow appeared in the air. It was a man with a stocky back and a stocky waist. Even his black robe could not hide his sturdy muscles. It was as if he would explode in the next moment, like a bodybuilder. "Immortal Diablo, do you know this person?" "Huh." Shui took a closer look and blurted out, "Isn't this the person who refused to move at the bottom of the ocean?" The man became even angrier. He said word by word, "This is my wife, Zhu Yao. There's actually such a pure and refined woman in this world. Shui. So all females look like this. No wonder he couldn't find a partner. My love for my wife is as deep as the ocean. Ever since the lower realm, we have always been together, never abandoning each other," he said with a pained expression. "But now, I'm the only one left in this world." His eyes reddened, as though he had sunk into some memories. His eyes were filled with despair and nostalgia. "It's all because of you. From now on, no one will turn on the lamp for me in the middle of the night. No one will sleep with me on the same pillow. No one will strangle me. No one will whip me. No one will light the candle. In any case, I want you to pay with your blood. The two of them." He seemed to have found out something incredible. "This person is a masochist, right? He definitely is, right? Hand over your life." The man raised his sword and slashed toward Shui. Unexpectedly, Shui did not act like before, where he simply and crudely attacked. Instead, his figure flashed, dodging his attack. "You really killed her?" Zhu Yao could not help but ask. Shui's footsteps paused for a moment before he nodded. "Amen, I need that cave residence." After pondering for a moment, he added, "I really didn't know it was a female living there." Zhu Yao did not reply. She could not tell what she was feeling in her heart, but she faintly felt that the main issue was not the gender issue. The man was after all a profound deity, so he basically couldn't harm Shui at all. With a light wave of his sleeves, he blocked his attack. With a frown he loudly said, "Hey, seeing that you've lost your partner, I can give you 10 moves. After 10 moves, don't blame me for being rude. Don't be arrogant." The man trembled from anger. Gritting his teeth, he used all the divine energy in his body and attacked without any regard for his life. He even threw his talisman treasures and divine artifacts over. "In the past, I couldn't do anything to you because you changed the formation at the bottom of the sea. Since you've come out today, don't even think about hiding again." A few loud explosions resounded. The sounds of talismans and divine artifacts activating could be heard everywhere, their auras shaking the heavens. As expected, Shui did not resist. He simply dodged while carefully counting his opponent's moves. 1, 2, 3, 4. With the absolute advantage of their levels, the man was basically unable to harm Shui in the slightest. In just a moment he was already panting heavily, while the other party did not even have the slightest injury. The man's expression trembled as he waved his hand and made a cut on his arm, using his blood to form a formation. Blood coagulation formation. Shui was startled. He took a few steps back and immediately summoned a defensive barrier. In an instant, the blood-colored divine swords that blotted out the skies and covered the earth came attacking towards him. Even the barrier he had erected began to crack, and finally it shattered. Earlier, they could not even touch him in the slightest, yet, the blood-colored divine swords had already left one wound after another on Shui's body. However, there were a few times where they almost hit the vital parts. However, the blood coagulation formation was a special formation that consumed one's own essence qi. Basically, it would damage the enemy by 1,000, but also oneself by 800. Not long after, the man could no longer hold on. His body swayed and he knelt down on one leg. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He had always looked like a weak scholar. They looked like they would fall apart at the slightest breeze. However, Shui shouted out the final number, 10. With a wave of his hand, he summoned a divine sword. Step by step, he walked towards that person. His expression turned cold, and he no longer had that cheeky look from before. That pair of sharp eyes was truly filled with killing intent. Zhu Yao simply felt her heart tremble, and she unconsciously shouted out, "Shui!" His feet paused for a moment, as though he was asking. He clearly knew that he had no position to stand on. Yet he still spoke up. "Can you not kill him?" Shui frowned, and then firmly shook his head. "No." As he approached he said, "If I don't kill him today, it might be the day I die in the future. I cannot leave behind any hidden dangers." He stopped 3 steps away from the man. Raising the sword in his hand, he was about to attack. Suddenly, that man raised his head. He revealed a smile. Shui was startled. Suddenly, his surroundings lit up with a white light. He dodged to the side, only to see a ray of white light shooting into the sky. In an instant, it streaked across the sky. "Did you think I would come here alone without complete preparations?" The man suddenly laughed out loud. "I know I'm not your opponent, but so what if your cultivation is high? I will naturally be able to deal with you." Shui looked towards that pillar of light. Suddenly he had a bad premonition. He subconsciously tightened his grip on Zhu Yao. "What mystic art is this? You actually don't recognize the disciplinary order?" The man coldly laughed. His eyes were filled with relief, and he let out a long sigh. "Fine. Evil deity, you have done many evil deeds. Now is the time to pay for them." That white light grew brighter, and the runes in the surroundings shone. A human figure slowly appeared in the center, and it grew clearer and clearer. A boundless pressure pressed down on Shui as well. For a moment, he could not hold on any longer, and his figure swayed. He knelt down and puked out a mouthful of blood. The white light scattered, and in the center of the formation, a handsome and suave man wearing a red robe and a jade crown slowly appeared. He had sharp brows and a jade bone red fan in his hand. The person was startled for a moment, and then he saw Zhu Yao in front of Shui's chest. Zhu Yao was startled, and she could not help but cry out, "Missus!" Seeing him hurriedly raise his fan and place it at the corner of his mouth, making a shushing motion, the Grandmaster, she was about to say, had no choice but to change her words. Oral fluid. What? Shui strangely lowered his head. Oh ho ho. I'm at menopause, so I want to calm down. Zhu Yao was a little confused. When did the Floor Master become someone else's summoned beast? Since when did the OP become someone else's summoned beast? Why did he appear here? What happened to the promise of helping Master protect her body? Was it really alright for him to appear here? The depths of Yu Jin's heart had long turned into a river. He did not want to come either, but why did someone find the disciplinary order? Why did the disciplinary order have to be connected to the Floor Master's divine imprint? Just a second ago, he was still protecting his little grand disciple's body, and in a blink of an eye, he arrived at this damned place. He finally patted his chest and guaranteed that he would look after his little grand disciple, and only then did he escape from little Yin Yin's demonic clutches. If he left his post, he would be struck to death, right? He definitely would, right? The main point was, he was even caught red-handed by his little grand disciple. His heart felt so stifled, so sad, and he really wanted to bully someone. Yu Jin's cold gaze swept across the crowd. He was indescribably domineering and mighty. His usual carefree attitude was nowhere to be found. Who issued the disciplinary order? Come out and let me beat you up. Lightning Divine Hall's high deity. The profound deity wobbled as he cupped his hands towards Eugene. This person is the heretic practitioner that brought calamity to the divine realm. Thus, he began to list out Shui Yi's crimes one by one, and when he spoke of his own wife, he was filled with righteous indignation. Finally, he said, "This humble one spared no effort in order to find this disciplinary order. I beg High Deity to uphold justice for this humble one and the people of the divine realm, and punish Shui Yi severely." As he said that, he had already knelt down. Eugene frowned, and turned to look at Shui Yi at the other side. Though Lightning Divine Hall was the place in charge of punishments in the divine realm, upholding justice and whatnot was something he had not done for many years. He was not familiar with the business. Furthermore, this disciplinary order was something he created out of boredom several tens of thousands of years ago. He even spread the word that if he could find the disciplinary order, he could have Lightning Divine Hall uphold justice and punish the wrongdoers. In the end, it was something he did on a whim. After being the Floor Master for so many years, he had long wanted to quit. However, he just could not find a successor. That was why he intentionally linked the Floor Master's divine imprint with this. His goal was to secretly mess with the next Floor Master. In the end, he did not mess with anyone else, but himself. In summary, you won't die if you don't ask for it. He had clearly hidden this disciplinary order so deeply. Just how did this person find it? Could he still happily continue being the Floor Master? He had already cursed several hundred times in his heart. Yet he had no choice but to put on a noble and cool demeanor. With a stern look he asked, "Is what he said true?" He had to bury the hole he dug even if he had to hold back his tears. "I did it." Shui admitted it very straightforwardly. "I don't think I'm a good person. However, this is how the world is. I believe every single person in the divine realm has done what I did. Naturally, one has to fight to expand one's territory, and naturally, one has to fight. Those who cannot win, either flee or die. This is the rule of this world in the first place." Expand one's territory? Fight? Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. Why did his tone sound like, "Since that's the case, I shall accept today's disciplinary order"? Eugene reached out his hand. The divine imprint that was emitting a white light earlier began to slowly rise and shrink, before finally disappearing into his palm. The might of a high deity was fully released. The sky was instantly filled with dark clouds, and thunder rumbled. A white light flashed, and a bolt of heavenly lightning struck down. "The Hell Floor Master, you're serious?" Shui gritted his teeth. He used all of the divine energy in his body to withstand the high deity's might, and his figure flashed as he left his original spot. However, that bolt of lightning suddenly split into half and chased after Shui Yi. He had no choice but to raise his divine sword to block it. A fifth-rank divine sword, however, turned into dust under the immense lightning pressure. He simply took out a new one and retreated as he fought. He flew several dozen kilometers away, yet he was still unable to escape from the lightning that covered the sky and earth. Fortunately, he had looted quite a few divine artifacts in that divine city earlier, which allowed him to withstand such a huge consumption. However, divine artifacts were limited, after all. In the beginning, he was still able to take out a 5th rank, then a 4th rank. In the end, he had no choice but to take out a 3rd rank. Even a 5th rank divine artifact could not withstand a single strike, let alone an artifact of a lower rank. Another bolt of lightning struck down, destroying the grade 3 celestial artifact in his hand. However, it only managed to dissipate a 5th of the lightning pressure. Just as the lightning bolt was about to strike his chest, it suddenly made a sharp turn and struck his body instead. A hint of doubt flashed past Shuiyi's face. In the next moment, he felt his blood churning, the meridians in his body ruptured, and his dantian felt as though it was about to be torn apart. Divine Sword Maiden. He suddenly took her out. What's wrong? I don't know why, but I realized that person seemed to be intentionally avoiding you. He must be afraid of you. You want to use me to defend against the enemy? No. He shook his head. I want. Before he could even finish, Yujin's figure flashed, and he had already appeared in front of him. He looked at the sword in his hand and said, Shuiyi, put down your weapon and admit defeat. This sovereign can consider sparing your life. Chapter 339. Yujin's words were calm, but his heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. He did not know how his little grand disciple ended up in this person's hands. It wasn't easy for him to force him to a place with no one around, and he had to hurry and give his little grand disciple to him so that he could go home and negotiate with little Yin Yan. What? When Shuiyi heard this, he instantly exploded. You want me to give Divine Sword Maiden to you? Dream on. She's the female I finally found, the partner I've decided on. We love each other, and will never be separated. If you want us to be separated, you have to kill us. Partner? Eugene was startled. He silently turned to look at that sword. Little grand disciple. Do you still remember little Yin Yan from the Great Lake? The hell, who's your partner? Speak clearly. Zhu Yao grew anxious. Can you treat your hallucinations? Divine Sword Maiden, don't worry. The automatic screen function was activated once again. He said with a face full of emotions. Only now have I recognized my true feelings. I won't let him harm a single strand of hair on you. We will be together forever. Be together, my ass. Who wants to be together with you? Zhu Yao wanted to strike him. Don't worry about me. Please strike him to death right now, alright? Divine Sword Maiden. Shuiyi's face was touched, and he was just short of tears. You actually want to be together with me? Zhu Yao. Her heart always felt stifled. Eugene. His little grand disciple actually had a change of heart. Shuiyi sniffed, his expression turned cold. He looked at Eugene with a determined expression, and said word by word. Bring it on. We will never be separated. Don't say such misleading words, hey. I really want to die. Master from the distant Mars, hurry and save your disciple's integrity. As you wish. The lightning clouds in the sky gathered once again. Hey, wait a minute. Are they really going to fight? Let me finish what I have to say. Unfortunately, no one listened to him. The two people in the sky seemed to be addicted to fighting as they began again. Clearly, Shuiyi was being suppressed, and Eugene seemed to be toying with him. His only goal was to snatch Zhu Yao back from his hands. Seeing that he was no match for him, Shuiyi suddenly cast an art, sliced open his palm, and drew a blood formation. Zhu Yao's entire sword began to emit out a white glow. A large amount of immortal qi entered the body of the sword, and she slowly flew up. Zhu Yao's heart clenched. What are you trying to do? She suddenly had a bad premonition. Immortal Sword Maiden, I'll take you as my life-bound artifact. Only then will we have the ability to fight him. What? A natal artifact. Accompanying summon beast? After binding it to her, she can appear in my divine sense. Time breeds love. Becoming a biological monkey or something. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. What's there to be excited about? Don't speak your mind at a time like this. No. Wait a minute. I don't want to be your natal immortal sword. Stop. The objection was blocked by a certain someone. Little grand disciple. Eugene was startled. He saw through Shuiyi's plan as well, and his expression instantly changed. It would be terrible if he succeeded. Little Yinyan's wife was bound to someone else? He would be annihilated. He immediately regretted wasting his time. He immediately summoned the tribulation lightning to stop it, but it was already too late. The formation was about to be completed, and Zhu Yao was about to turn into a flash of light and enter Shuiyi's forehead. A ray of white light suddenly tore through the air, and passed by Shuiyi's forehead, instantly cutting off the casting of the mystic art. Shuiyi simply felt a huge pressure directly attacking his forehead. In an instant, his divine sense was in immense pain. It was as though someone had sliced him apart. Unable to hold on any longer, he knelt down on one knee. He subconsciously searched for Zhu Yao. Raising his head, he saw another person standing in the sky. His white robe was as white as snow, his face was cold, and he was currently holding on to that second-ranked divine sword. Master! Zhu Yao was about to cry. You're finally here. Yu Yin glanced at the sword in his hand. After confirming that it was his stupid disciple, he then looked at the person who was half kneeling on the ground, recalling the scene earlier. In an instant, cold air filled the surroundings. The air seemed to have turned cold to the extreme, and every single word he said felt like ice shards would fall. You want to place her in your divine sense. Yu Yin had never been as furious as he was right now. He wanted to destroy the world at any moment. After searching for so long, and failing so many times, and just earlier, he had almost flipped the entire overflowing cloud sea upside down. After much difficulty, he finally found his stupid disciple. However, he realized that she was currently being placed in someone else's divine sense, and turned into a life weapon. A life weapon was connected to the divine sense, and once it was bound, it could not be removed. They had to be together for life. This was something that he did not do. Yet this person who popped out of nowhere actually dared to touch his disciple. In an instant, the pressure in the air was practically suffocating. Shuiyi was suffering from the backlash of the mystic art in the first place, and right now he was just short of being plastered to the ground. Though a single level of cultivation could crush someone to death, he had never seen someone this terrifying. Unable to hold on for a moment, his vision darkened, and he fainted. Little Yin Yan. Eugene had no choice but to speak up. If this continued, that person was going to be crushed to death. Calm down. Yu Yin turned to look at him. The ice shards in his eyes changed their target. Eugene silently took a step back, and then another. Little Yin Yan's expression was so scary. Even his little heart was trembling. Do whatever you want, I didn't say anything. He immediately changed his words. He suddenly felt that the little Yin Yan from back then in the lightning divine hall, compared to now, was as gentle as the wind and rain. Master! Zhu Yao spoke up in time to pacify him. Though Shuiyi wanted to keep her as his life weapon, his motive was to save her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen a second-ranked divine sword as his life weapon. Let's return. Only then did Yu Yin turn to look at the sword in his hand. He retracted the cold aura around his body, and gave Eugene a "I'll deal with you later" expression. Then he brought his disciple and flew back to the lightning divine hall. After searching for so long, he finally found her. He had to hurry and have his disciple's soul return to her body. Otherwise, there would always be bastards who wanted to snatch his disciple away from him. Eugene, who was left behind, lowered his head and poked the corpse on the ground. Sighing helplessly, he picked it up and flew after them. Looking at the figure that was getting further away, he suddenly felt a little sad. Why did he feel that his status as the mighty hall master of the lightning divine hall was getting lower and lower? Let him think about it. When did this situation start? Back then, when little Yin Yan had just ascended, though she was as cold as he was now, at the very least, she was a good child who respected her elders. However, ever since his disciple appeared, he became more and more terrifying. Every day, he would have the urge to pull out his sword, especially when he consulted that disobedient grand-disciple of his, and decided to marry little grand-disciple. His dignity as a hall master was completely crushed into smithereens. So the conclusion was that he had taken advantage of his disciple? Amen. Maybe he should take in a female disciple or something as well, and then he could naturally get rid of his single status. Perhaps he could raise his status as well. Chapter 340. She was finally legally picked up by her own master. Zhu Yao thought that her miserable exile in the divine realm had ended, and the next step was to bind to her original body. From then on, she would live a shameless, a loving and blissful life with her master. However, after returning to the Lightning Divine Hall, she realized that she was too naive. Her soul had returned, but her avatar was gone. Where's my body? Was there a need to be so miserable? There's no sign of living beings here. Yu Yan released his divine sense and searched the entire Lightning Divine Hall. Yet he did not find his own disciple's body. Both of them turned around, and their gazes were as sharp as knives as they stared at a certain person who had left his post. Eugene was dumbfounded as well. He weakly took a step back. She was clearly here earlier. It had not even been an hour since he left. Why did little grand disciple's body disappear the moment he returned? There are no traces of the formation outside being activated. Logically speaking, no one else can enter, so it's impossible for her to disappear. So I disappeared into thin air. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. She was alcohol, she could even evaporate. Little grand disciple, don't be anxious. Eugene smiled. I placed a tracking formation on your body. As long as it's activated, I will naturally know where your body is. With a wave of his hand, he tossed Shui down and cast an art to summon a human-sized water mirror. Brushing his palm against the surface of the mirror, after a flash of light, a white fog slowly appeared on the surface of the water mirror. Zhu Yao. Yuyan. That what happened to the promised movie? Your wireless technology is clearly not up to standard. Eugene's expression stiffened, and then he chuckled at the two of them. Oh, this is a mistake. I suddenly recalled that I'm still roasting corn in my backyard. See you later. After saying that, he disappeared like a wisp of smoke. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Where was the trust in the sect? Master. What should she do? Yu Yan frowned, as he carefully placed his disciple on the table. He glanced at the water mirror at the side, which was still a vast expanse of whiteness, and said with a sunken voice, the places which the water mirror is unable to display are definitely places with extremely tight formations. Someone who has the ability to barge into the Lightning Divine Hall, take your body away, and then retreat unscathed is definitely not a simple person. We still have to consider this matter at length. Then do I still have to continue being a sword? Zhu Yao felt like crying. That's not it. Yu Yan pinched his fingers and lightly swiped. He condensed a drop of blood and dripped it onto the sword. Master? Instantly, the smell of blood filled her senses again. Don't resist. To read this book, please search for 800. Just as Zhu Yao wanted to spit it out, she stopped herself. She had no choice but to endure the discomfort and swallow it down. In an instant, the discomfort disappeared and was replaced by a familiar immortal power. She felt that the entire sword had become much lighter. Yu Yan cast an art, and a formation flashed. The row of messy letters on her sword actually began to gather, and slowly gathered at the bottom of the sword hilt. When the light from the formation dispersed, a familiar lightning cloud symbol actually appeared. It was the symbol of the Lightning Divine Hall. What is this? Just as Zhu Yao was about to ask, the sword suddenly emitted out a white light, and she felt her entire body floating away. When she regained her senses, she was already standing next to the table, and that sword was still on the table. She subconsciously wanted to touch the sword on the table, but unexpectedly, the moment she touched the sword, she directly passed through it. What's going on? Did she return to her soul form? Yao, this sword isn't your main body. Yu Yan said with a sunken voice. Not my main body. Zhu Yao was stunned. Then, am I attached to this sword? Were all second-ranked divine swords this incredible? They could even guide souls. Yu Yan shook his head. No. You're a part of this sword. What? You're currently the sword spirit of this sword. He glanced at the sword on the table. The reason why you couldn't come out of the sword earlier was because you didn't have enough divine energy to support your appearance. Earlier, I transferred my divine energy into your body. That's why you appeared. Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. It was really possible. Back when she was picked up by Miao Bo, he couldn't hear her at all. Later on, when he threw her into the sea, others could suddenly hear her. And before that, she was indeed in that mysterious secret realm. She absorbed a lot of divine energy from Miao Bo's body. In the end, the reason why she couldn't hear her was because she didn't have enough energy. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao pointed at the symbol of the lightning divine palace on the sword. Master, since I can appear after transferring divine energy, then what's with this symbol? Was there a need to transfer divine energy after the sword recognizes its owner? Yu Yan stiffened for a moment. After pausing for 2 seconds, he suddenly stood up. Your divine energy is still unstable, so you can't appear for long. Your master will first bring you to the lightning abyssal pool to stabilize your divine energy. Oh, what's strange? Yu Yan immediately held on to his disciple with one hand and flew towards the mountain peak with the other. In order to prevent his disciple from being abducted, it was very normal for him to stamp it. This was already Zhu Yao's second time entering the lightning abyssal pool. Compared to the first time she turned into a rock, this time was evidently much better. Putting aside the fact that she didn't feel the slightest bit of pain, she even had her family accompanying her the entire time. After soaking in it for exactly 10 days, the divine energy in her body slowly stabilized. Finally, she could appear 24 hours a day without any interruption. However, she was still unable to grab hold of the sword. The sword spirit was a part of the divine sword in the first place. So strictly speaking, the sword was the main body, and she was merely an accessory. Naturally, she couldn't control the sword's body, and she could only appear within a radius of about 1 kilometer from the sword. If she went too far, she would automatically return to the sword. There was still no news of her body. Her master had once again reinforced the formations surrounding the lightning divine palace. The layers upon layers of formations made Zhu Yao feel a little dizzy. This time, forget about humans. Even a housefly probably wouldn't be able to fly in. As for the main culprit's great grandmaster, Hall Master Eugene, on the first day she entered the lightning abyssal pool, he bravely expressed that he wanted to personally search for her body. After greeting him, he swiftly left the lightning divine palace. No matter how she looked at it, he looked as though he was fleeing. However, with his unreliable personality, Zhu Yao did not have the slightest bit of hope. Though she frequently changed her avatars, the one she lost was the original one. No matter what, she had to find it back. Master, are there many places in this world that even great grandmasters' formations are unable to track? Zhu Yao crawled out of the lightning abyssal pool as she asked. Yu Yan pondered for a moment. No more than 3. The Hall Master was a high deity paragon. There were very few people in this world who could escape his tracking arts. Then let's go search those places as well? Zhu Yao suggested. Yu Yan did not object. With a wave of his hand, he cast a mystic art on his disciple and that divine sword, eliminating the excess lightning energy in her body. With one hand holding on to his disciple, and the other holding on to the sword, he flew up. Her master was a high deity, so he naturally did not need to rely on any mystic artifacts to fly. In just a flash, the two of them had already left the lightning divine palace. She turned to look, only to see that the layers of formations were closing up amidst the lightning clouds. Why did she feel like she had forgotten something? She couldn't remember. Forget it. It probably isn't important anyway. At the bottom of the lightning divine palace, a certain figure who had been unconscious for 10 days was slowly waking up. She looked at her surroundings a little confusedly, only to see that everywhere she looked was pitch-black scorched earth. Where is this place? Zhu Yao thought that she would be able to find her original avatar very quickly, but she never expected that she would end up empty-handed again. The 3 places her master had mentioned did not have any traces of her avatar at all. Yu Yan spread his divine sense across a large half of the cultivation continent, and after carefully searching for 5 to 6 days, he was still unable to find a single clue. This didn't make sense. Could it be that her avatar had been reclaimed by the realm spirit? It couldn't be that she didn't even greet him, right? Wait a minute. She suddenly recalled that she could switch between avatars in the past, but in these few months, she did not switch avatars at all. Could it be that there was some sort of special trigger condition for switching avatars? She pondered for a moment. The first time she returned, she seemed to have been placed in a storage pouch, and the second time seemed to be because she held her breath for too long. If there was a difference between the 2 times, then divine energy was completely isolated. Zhu Yao simply felt a ding sound in the depths of her heart as a lamp lit up. She immediately pulled her master next to her excitedly. Master, I know how to return to my own body. Hurry, store me in your storage artifact. She carefully explained the matter she had just figured out to him. Yu Yan, however, frowned. Evidently, he was a little against it. Though the method you mentioned is logical. However, even if this method works, we don't know where your body is right now. If you suddenly wake up, if there's any danger, it would instead be disadvantageous to you. Don't worry, Master. I will take note. Zhu Yao patted on her chest and guaranteed. It won't take long. Just store me in your storage artifact for a short while. At the very most, you can take me out after 15 minutes. When that time comes, my soul will naturally return. This way, there won't be any problems. He hesitated for a moment, and was still very against such a risky move. Zhu Yao spent a lot of words, and after persuading him for a long while, he finally reluctantly nodded. Remember, do not act rashly. He repeatedly instructed. Everything will have to wait until you return and see your master. Just in case, I will only put you in for 3 breaths of time. That's a little too short, isn't it? 3 breaths, which was just 3 seconds. It would be weird if she could see it clearly. Amen. All right then. You're the boss. Zhu Yao's figure returned to the sword in a flash. Yu Yan tightened his grip on the sword, but he was still a little hesitant. A moment later, he opened the storage ring on his hand, and Zhu Yao instantly turned into a ray of light and entered the ring. 1 second, 2 seconds, time's up. She could take it out now. With a twist of Yu Yan's hand, that second-ranked divine sword once again appeared in his hand. On the pure white blade, the lightning cloud symbol was especially eye-catching. He hurriedly called out with a sunken voice. Yao. There was no response. Yu Yao. There was still no response. Answer your master. Yu Wang. Complete silence. Chapter 341. After entering the storage mystic artifact, Zhu Yao simply felt her vision turning dark. In the next moment, she heard the sound of the wind. She raised her head, only to see the blue sky above her, and white clouds were currently flying backwards at an extremely fast speed. As she flew, there were 3 large bat-like wings on each side of her. The more she looked at them, the more familiar they looked. She touched her body, and it was a piece of hard leather. Her heart, which was originally holding her breath because she did not want to expose herself, instantly fell onto the ground. The corner of her lips twitched. She ruthlessly kicked downwards and sat up. Sesame. Sesame, who was flying, was startled for a moment. It excitedly turned its gigantic beast head from the front, and looked at her with hot tears in its eyes. Mistress, you're finally awake. It did not look where it was going, and instantly crashed into a cliff. With a thud, it fell down. Fortunately, the moment it landed, it remembered the mistress on its back. With a roll of its body, it used its belly to catch Zhu Yao. Seeing that she had safely landed on the ground, it then transformed into its human form with a flash of white light. It hugged onto Zhu Yao's thigh, and cried out loudly, Mistress, you scared this beastie to death. The moment I woke up, you were just lying there, not moving at all. I searched the entire lightning divine palace, but I couldn't find his honor. I even thought you. This beastie's soul was hurt. You were the one who brought me out of lightning divine palace? Zhu Yao pulled her thigh, which was being hugged, but to no avail. That's right, this beastie's little heart was about to jump out. With a wronged look, it rubbed against her thigh with all its might. You don't even know how severe your injuries are. There's not even any breathing or heartbeat. This beastie wanted to find his honor, but he couldn't find him. I wanted to find Floor Master, but I couldn't find his shadow. I really had no choice, so I brought you here, to find. It paused halfway, and began to cry even harder. Fortunately, mistress, you're awake again. Otherwise, this beastie would be a masterless child. Eeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeeee Neither Floor Master and her master were unable to find out who took her body away. Sesame was her spiritual beast, and it brought her out of Lightning Divine Palace. Let go of my thigh first. You're a big man. Don't you feel ashamed hugging someone else's thigh? Speak properly. No. Sesame crazily shook its head, completely not knowing what shame was. Master, you don't even know what hurt my young heart? You scared this beastie to death. Promise me, please don't let me become an ownerless child. Get lost. I don't have a son as big as you. Zhu Yao turned to look at her surroundings, only to see that this place was filled with tall mountains and dense forests, as well as oddly shaped rocks. The scenery was very unique. She had been in the divine realm for so many years, yet she had never seen such a scenery. Recalling Sesame's words, she could not help but ask, "Where is this?" "This is the demonic immortal continent," Sesame replied. "What? The demonic immortal continent? Why did you bring me here?" No wonder the immortal realm couldn't find her body's signal. She had already crossed the map. How was he supposed to search without roaming? Sesame paused for a moment. It shamelessly continued to hug onto her thigh tightly, and wiped its snot and tears onto her thigh. "I couldn't find the sovereign and floor master, so I wanted to return to the demonic immortal continent to take a look, and see if there's anyone who can save Mistress." Wait a minute. Zhu Yao was a little confused. "You said you woke up in the Lightning Divine Hall?" That's right, that's right." He nodded. "I have been in your divine since the entire time. Earlier, I had just woken up, and the moment I came out, I saw Mistress lying on the ground. I thought something happened to you, and you did not revive successfully?" Could she say that she had completely forgotten about keeping Sesame into her divine sense? She did not bring it along during the few missions in the past. She had long forgotten that it was in her bag as well. There's nothing wrong with my body. The reason why I didn't wake up was because my soul left my body." She told him about how she could still turn into a sword. As Sesame listened, his expression instantly sank, and his face was filled with a pitiful look of being abandoned. "Mistress, you actually forgot to let me out." Its bestial heart was shattered. It was angry, and it wanted to vent. "Forget it. It's best if I just cry a little." Woo-woo. Why did she feel the guilt of a scumbag girl? She could not help but stroke his head. It's not that I didn't want to let you out. Look, after I revived, I was just a mortal, without divine energy. How am I supposed to let you out of my divine sense, right? You're so obedient. You're one of a kind in this world. A good bestial that can only be found once in 10,000. You'll definitely understand, Mistress, you know? Mistress still loves you. Amen, he's such a good bestial. Is it really because you don't have any cultivation? Really, you have to believe me? Good bestial. All right, his glass heart was mended. Then what about now? Right now, I don't have any cultivation either. The hell? Zhu Yao habitually circulated her divine energy, and a ball of purple lightning actually appeared in her hands. Even she herself was shocked. How is this possible? She carefully sensed for a moment, and realized that her body's cultivation had actually directly risen to the profound deity level. Wasn't this a little too illogical? The secret to her body's cultivation was actually sleeping? Mistress. Sesame, who was waiting for consolation, Seeing that she was suddenly stunned, he could not help but nudge her. Continue praising me. I suddenly have cultivation. Zhu Yao frowned. She had a feeling that there would always be a trap behind this sort of pie falling from the sky. This matter is too strange. Let's first return to Lightning Divine Palace and ask Master. Zhu Yao habitually wanted to fly on her sword, only to recall that she did not have a transportation tool. Hence, she pulled Sesame up from her lap. I don't have a mystic artifact to fly. Return to your original form and bring me back. Oh. Sesame habitually turned into that six-winged demonic beast and carried Zhu Yao as they flew. Wait a minute. What happened to the promised consolation? Regarding the matter of her being brought away by Sesame, it was a misunderstanding. She did not know how her body suddenly had cultivation. Coincidentally, Sesame woke up when the unreliable floor master was dragged away by the disciplinary order. Seeing that Zhu Yao had yet to wake up, and seeing that there was no one in Lightning Divine Palace, its head heated up, and it called 120. Apui, it brought her back to the demonic immortal continent. This matter was actually very easy to deal with. They could just return after coming out. However, when they once again arrived at the border of the continent, the two of them were dumbfounded. What's that? Zhu Yao pointed at the densely packed wind blades that were even denser than infrared rays, and her face darkened. Realm tide. Sesame looked as though he wanted to cry as well. A realm tide will appear once every 100 years between the demonic immortal continent and the deity immortal continent. Anyone who enters will be injured by the wind blades. They will be sliced to the point where not even their bones remain. What about the defensive barrier? Zhu Yao continued to ask. If it was just wind blades, it should be able to block them, right? Sesame, however, shook its head. These wind blades are different from others. They are formed from the aura of the breathless river, so barriers are basically useless. What do you mean? Speak human words. The hell was the breathless river? The breathless river is the heavenly river that separates the two continents, Sesame said with a bitter look. On the breathless river, all divine arts and divine arts will disappear. Hence, these wind blades can render mystic arts ineffective as well. Hence, all mystic arts are useless against it. It's that incredible? It's actually a zeroing DL button. Then, when will the wind stop? Sesame stretched out a finger. 2 hours. Sesame shook its head. A day? It can't be a month, right? It still shook its head and weakly said. A year. The hell? Zhu Yao became irritated. As expected, it's safer to be locked in my divine sense. Mistress. Its glass heart shattered again. How can you say that? Its nose turned sour. Its eyes reddened. Just as it was about to cry and complain, it suddenly blanked. Looking in a certain direction, its expression instantly changed, turning deathly pale. In a flash, it suddenly returned to her divine sense. What's wrong? It really returned just like that? When did it become so obedient? Mistress, hurry and retract your divine aura, hurry. Sesame's voice anxiously sounded, carrying an anxiousness she had never seen before. Zhu Yao frowned. Although she did not know what was going on, she still did as she was told. Immediately after, 2 frightening pressures came pressing down from the skies and earth. She could not help but choke, and she had almost sat on her butt. 2 figures instantly appeared in front of her. When she clearly saw their appearances, the corner of her lips could not help but twitch. One was red, and the other was yellow. The red was bright red, even their hair was red, and the yellow was tender yellow. Even their fingernails were yellow. And both of them were demonic immortals with the cultivation of a heavy deity. Why is it a deity practitioner? That red demonic immortal was startled, as he looked straight at Zhu Yao. The more he looked, the more focused he became. The more he looked, the brighter his eyes shone, and the more he wanted to lean his head over. Hi! Zhu Yao could not help but extend her paw and greet him. That red demonic immortal gasped. Even his face had turned red, and his entire body felt a little uncomfortable. He tugged on the corner of his clothes, and then pulled on his sleeves. His voice instantly lowered by a few octaves, and even his voice was trembling. And it's a little sister girl. He turned to look at the yellow demonic immortal at the side, and casually pushed him. She pushed him. Hey, what do you think we should do? Ah. That yellow demonic immortal was pushed, and he almost fell. Only then did he regain his senses. He suddenly took a step forward, and said with a stern look, "Little sister, hello. My name is Huang Qi, and my original form is a divergent immortal beast of the feather race. I'm the realm protector of the demonic immortal continent, and I have the cultivation of a 14th rank heavy deity. I have 3 cave residences with beautiful sceneries and abundant divine energy, and I have the privilege to freely enter and exit the demonic immortal palace. Why don't we first become friends? What's up with this impression of a matchmaking session? My name is Red Qi." When Red Deity heard him speak up, he immediately added on as well. In an instant, his face was filled with regret. Why did he forget to introduce himself earlier? What a pity, he had lost the initiative. He silently glanced at his little companion next to him. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. It seemed like the world-favorable impression ability was effective on demonic immortals as well. The hell, you two bitches, let go of my mistress. She's one of my beasties. Sesame crazily spammed the screen in her divine sense. I want to torture these 2 blind beasts to death right now. Then come out. Why are you roaring in my divine sense? Zhu Yao's expression darkened. Oh right, deity sister. Red Qi was still looking at her with sparkling eyes. Why are you here? Are you lost? Where do you want to go? Why don't Big Brother give you a ride? Zhu Yao silently took a step back. Can you please retract that idiot face of yours? What happened to the promise that deities and demons would never coexist? Ho ho, 2 great demonic immortals. I'm just here to look at the scenery. Now that I'm done, bye. She wanted to run away. Only then did the 2 demonic immortals regain their senses. Exchanging glances, their figures flashed, and as expected, blocked her path. Girl, you can't leave. Big brothers, is there anything else? Zhu Yao tried her best to maintain a friendly expression. Girl, it's not that Big Brother Red wants to make things difficult for you. Red Qi looked at her a little embarrassedly. It's just that deity practitioners are not allowed to enter the demonic immortal continent. This is an order from the king. Of course, I know you're definitely not a bad person. However, we have no choice but to bring you back first. Girl, don't be afraid. Huang Qi immediately added. I will bring you to another place to stay for a few days, and ask you a few questions. Once I'm done, if you want to look at the scenery, Big Brother will bring you around. As expected, they still wanted to capture her. It seemed like though the influence of the world-favorable impression ability was great, it was still incomparable to when she was in the lower realm. Though the 2 of them were polite to her, they were not being nice to her without reason. Zhu Yao had no choice but to follow the 2 of them. Since she was in someone else's territory, she did not dare to go against them. Furthermore, the 2 of them had the cultivation of heavy deities. As an earth deity, she would be instantly reduced to dust. Oh right, girl. Have you seen a pitch-black demonic immortal with 6 wings? Huang Qi suddenly asked. Zhu Yao was stunned. Sesame? He looks like this in human form. Huang Qi looked at her blankly, and immediately materialized the image of a man in the air. As expected, it was Sesame. Her heart trembled, and she calmly shook her head. I just came over, so I didn't notice. Seeing the 2 frown, she casually said. Who's this beast? Why are you 2 looking for it? A hint of disgust instantly flashed past the faces of the 2 of them. Red Qi even coldly snorted, and hatefully said. This beast is simply the disgrace of our demonic immortal realm. He's the model example of an ungrateful person. Our princess is infatuated with him. Yet he actually abandoned her and ran away from the marriage in front of everyone. That's why our great king ordered the entire demonic immortal realm to capture him and punish him. Oh, Zhu Yao nodded, and intentionally emphasized her tone. He abandoned her. He's truly a trash beastie. Isn't that so? Our princess is the #1 beauty of the demonic immortal realm, you know? Just based on this point alone, he was actually so heartless to abandon her. Just based on this point alone, we can't tolerate it. That's right, that's right. Huangqi responded as well. If he doesn't even want the number one beauty, how are single beasties like us supposed to live? Do you think it's easy for us beasties to find a wife? This daddy has been cultivating for 100,000 years ever since I came from the lower realm. Yet I haven't even touched a single female beastie's claw. What right does he have to reject me? You've only cultivated for 100,000 years, while I've cultivated for more than 100,000 years. Forget about a beast's claw. I haven't even had the chance to speak much. I really want to find a female beastie to talk about life, and talk about ideals. I really want to find a female beastie to talk about life, and talk about ideals. Zhu Yao. So the beast realm had a serious problem with a single population. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.